Hey, everybody, the 2024 election is heating up, and tonight, the number 2 candidate in terms of polling is entering the race, Ron DeSantis. As you can see behind me, I have my can't miss DeSantis flag back there. I love Ron DeSantis. I've been honest about that from the beginning, but I do have a wonderful dialogue set up. I got not only myself, but in studio, I'm also going to have my good friend. You saw him on my show this last Sunday, David Paul Blumenshine. I'll bring him up here soon. He is out. He'll be honest. He's more of a Trump guy. I also have my good friend from the Eldonzo and Dees podcast. Dees will be on. And Ty Smith, my good friend, Modern Renaissance Man, might join us sometime soon. But before all that, before we get to the announcement, I'm Kev Phares, and you're watching Speechless. Everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And before, like I said, we get to everything, I do want to say a great shout out to my good friend, Paul Garcia of Paul Garcia Productions. All my live streams are brought to you by Paul Garcia Productions recently. He helps me out so much. This is why I have a better camera now, why we also have a better camera for David Paul Blumenshine as well when he comes on. But Paul Garcia does amazing work, guys. You should go check him out. In the description of this video, you can see Paul Garcia Productions' his website, his YouTube channel. He's going to help your business get more business. Paul Garcia does an amazing job. Everybody, like you can see right there, he's in the comments even. He supports my content a lot, and he's just a great guy. So Paul Garcia Productions, paulgarciaproductions.com. Help your business get more business. But we're going to get all into it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you do want to help support the show at all in a personal capacity, feel free to check out. I got some different ways you could help support the show. You could also like, share, subscribe. Do not forget to do that. But let's bring everybody into the chat. I got my good friend David Paul Blumenshine right there. David, how's it going?
Look at it. I still don't look very good there, Kevin.
You look great. Get out of here.
Give me some more lighting.
Okay, we can work on your lighting a little bit more.
And I probably should plug this in.
You should probably plug your headphones in the DPP. He's a little bit of an older gentleman, so it could take him a little bit longer, but
wow, I can hear.
There we go. Now he can hear. David, we're going to get to all your commentary as well, but I do want to also introduce another good friend. He has a show on Cities 92.9 The Station from 9 to 11 with his other guy, Donzo, but this is Dees of the Eldonzo and Dees show. Let's check your mic and everything.
Whoa.
Can we hear you?
I don't know.
We can hear you. We can hear you now.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Apparently, I don't have as many problems as old DBP there.
Yeah. Well, it says somebody saying,
hey, it's DPB.
DPB. Sorry, dyslexic.
DPB.
Somebody says DPB's mic is not working. David, we're going to do a little mic check to make sure everybody can hear you. Can you do a little mic check for us?
Testing 1, 2, 3. I'm a little loud on my headphones.
It says you're loud on your headphones. Somebody else is saying audio's not working. Everybody, Dees, can you hear him?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Paul says it's not working.
I put my glasses on just for Dees.
Can't hear us all on Facebook.
I can't hear. I can't see. Hold on.
I'm going to do a little bit. Good thing. So we started this early. If you can hear us, we started this early so we can work out any possible technical difficulties and get a little bit of commentary in. But let me go check on our Facebook, see if I can hear us. I can hear me on Facebook.
I heard you.
Everybody, please comment if you can't hear us. Let us know. He's just a little quiet. I'll make sure that he's a little louder.
Paul, we want a refund for the equipment you sold us.
Okay. I hope that that you guys can hear it a little bit better now. Maybe it's because I'm too loud. I hope that it's all work. Paul says it must be a little sunny in the studio. No, I think our lighting's pretty good. But
about these.
But so we're gonna get into the topic of everybody. Make sure, please. Okay, he says you sound better now. It must be my fault on the soundboard. And I got to turn myself. I think I project a little too much, so it makes everybody else sound quieter. I think that might be the issue.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get into a little bit of content before. So I'm keeping an eye on. Actually, I'll share this first right now. So Twitter. So here's the thing. So Ron DeSantis plans on announcing his candidacy for president via Twitter,
Allegedly.
It is actually. It's not even allegedly. It is. I can share my screen right now. This is how we're going to stream it for everybody to make sure you can see. But right now, if you go to Elon Musk's Twitter, right there, you can see that preparing to launch is what it's called. It is Elon Musk is hosting it. And this is going to be really interesting because I don't think ever in the history of American politics has a presidential candidacy announced their run via Twitter, and via Twitter exclusively. It's not going to be broadcast, at least from what I understand. It's not going to be primarily broadcast on any of the major news networks, on any legacy media. It's going to be on Twitter, which is a really interesting topic of conversation because obviously another unprecedented part of this 2024 presidential election is how early the primary candidate for the GOP, Donald Trump, he announced incredibly early compared to any other candidate. So there's a lot of things that are unprecedented about this election, and I'm curious to know your guys' D's. I'm always just used to saying Aldonzo and D's. D's, I want to know your take. DPP, I want to know your take. How do you feel about the fact that he's announcing on Twitter as opposed to and with Elon Musk of all people, as opposed to any legacy media?
Well, I think it's no coincidence that Elon Musk is, I believe, still the richest man in the world, if I'm not mistaken. So there could be a little extra motivation there. Purely speculative, of course, but very interesting that it is strictly online. But I mean, look at the day, the time that we're in, though. Everything is going online. I was just having this discussion with my father not that long ago about how streaming and online social media stuff is taking over. And while we probably won't be alive to actually see the day, but there will be a day in the not so distant future that there won't be broadcast television.
Absolutely. DPP, what do you think?
Althea, can you hear us yet? Give a thumbs up.
She did say she said now. It is now.
It is now. Okay, good.
Yep.
I'm glad that Althea
working better. So
I agree with these. I mean, bottom line is, Kevin, when you mentioned that no one had done this before, and yet platforms like Twitter were available, but they are so prevalent now, and they do consume the media space. There's a reason that when Donald Trump was taken down off of Facebook and Twitter, that there was an uprising amongst the conservative movement because it was a violation, as we saw, to the First Amendment, that you're trying to quiet speech. Now, granted, our libertarian friends would say, well, they're a private company. They can do whatever they want. Well, they can. You're right. And that's hence why I think we now have Truth Social. And don't worry, Kevin, I'm ready for you when DeSantis announces that he's running, because I've got Truth Social pulled up. So I'm going to get the best of the best off of Truth Social.
I actually think that's a really good idea. I was actually I wanted to go on here. And I'll share my screen with this. I have it also pulled up. I have Truth Social pulled up as well.
Oh, good.
And I think it'll be great for us to see exactly how the former president reacts to, I'm sorry, I want to make sure everybody can see it on here. If you look here, so Donald J. Trump on Truth Social, in my opinion, has been throwing a little bit of a temper tantrum today when it comes to everything that he's bringing up about Ron DeSantis announcing. He says, "I'd like to personally congratulate Rob," in quotes, DeSanctimonious, on finally announcing that he will be entering the race of the president of the United States. Hopefully, he will get the full experience of being attacked by the Marxists, communists, and radical left lunatics of our country, without which he will never know the kind of job he is doing. These lowlifes and misfits are far worse than the leaders of hostile foreign countries. They must be soundly defeated in order to make America great again. And I think that's actually probably the nicest thing that he said so far. If you look at further tweets that he posted earlier today, it had a lot more to do with, it says that this one indicates that DeSantis could not be America first, because he posted a news release here, retruthed a news release saying any Republican who challenges Trump cannot be America first. He has so many different, he has polls on here that try to say that DeSantis can't win nearly as much as Trump can.
In the general.
Yeah. There's so many, there's a lot of different things on here. There was other posts that he made earlier today that were a little bit more attacking of the new candidate.
Kevin, you remind me of a kid on Christmas morning here in the studio.
I'm very excited, everybody.
Hey,
I'm so excited.
Kevin, I have a question for you.
Yep.
Do you believe that the World Wrestling Federation, the WWF, do you believe in that World Wrestling stuff? Do you believe that's real?
Like WWE?
The WWE now.
You're getting WWE mixed up with WE. No, he's getting it mixed up with the WEF, the World Economic Forum.
Yeah, the World Wrestling Enterprise now. Is that what it is?
Entertainment.
Oh, yeah, they coined it right. I asked you that for a reason, because I think a lot of this is purely political theater, and kudos to Trump and DeSantis for playing the game, because this is what I believe keeps the media engaged. And I want the media to be reporting about the ongoing feud between DeSantis. Obviously, they're not going to report about the feud between Trump and Tim Scott, because there ain't going to be a feud.
No. And I think Trump has pretty much put Tim Scott, or said, like, congratulations on coming in the race. But here's the way I see it is I think candidates like Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy, Larry Elder, even Nikki Haley, and Asi, or who's the former governor
Asa.
of
Hutchinson.
They're all running for vice president, or for, I mean, Larry Elder even had a post on his Instagram. I don't know if maybe I can find it for later, but he had a post on his Instagram today where somebody in it literally, like, he screenshotted a comment from somebody that literally said, even if Larry Elder doesn't get the nomination, then he should still have a cabinet position. And I think that's what a lot of Republicans are running for. Besides, if you're not Trump or DeSantis, you're running for VP or a candidate, or a cabinet position. I think that's really what it is. Because right now it is so obvious that it's basically between those.
Well, it worked
two.
for Pete Buttigieg.
It did work for PP Butt. Pete Buttigieg.
And Kamala.
Yeah, it did well.
And that's the
crazy. But that's like the thing is, though, is Democrats. It's usually more of a Democrat thing. I think that a lot of Republicans are getting fed up with that kind of a mentality that, it's kind of like what happened back before. So in our first and second, I believe, presidential elections of the United States of America, period, it used to be that the loser would become vice president.
Yeah.
And then it was Thomas. It might have just been the first presidential election, because then Thomas Jefferson came in. It was his presidential election against Aaron Burr. And he had said, no, that makes no sense. Like, you were you were diametrically opposed to me. I'm not going to be working with you in that capacity. But it seems like we have another version of that now, where it's, you ran for president, you were my enemy. Well, now you're going to be my best friend and be Department of Transportation Secretary or Secretary of State or whatever, you know?
Hey, did I hear this correctly, Dees? Did you hear this also about the Florida legislature? In April, was it April, that they put forth the legislation that said that in the event that DeSantis would run, not necessarily pointing him out or limiting it only to Ron DeSantis, but if a governor of Florida runs for president, that they can still retain their governorship.
So what happened? They got rid of their resign to run law. So they used to have a resign to run law that was, if you're going to run for a federal office and you currently hold a state office, then you'd have to resign to do so. They took that away, the resign to run law, I believe, for the specific reason. It's not publicly really said. Like, nobody has confirmed from the Florida government that this is for Ron DeSantis's presidency, but it's pretty much.
But that was
publicly
something
understood.
that they went ahead and voted on during the assembly of this last time around, this session. Okay.
Absolutely.
Very good.
It says it's choppy on Facebook. Let me make sure that I'm going to see what's going on. Might be an internet thing, but let's see what's going on.
I don't want to be choppy.
I don't want to be choppy either. So we're going to make sure that we have everything set up. We're trying to bring you guys the best possible content here.
Nope. Sounds good on your phone, Kevin.
Sounds good on my phone. Althea and anybody else that it might sound a little bit choppy for, from what I understand, it might be an internet thing.
Hey, Althea, are you watching this via a Wi-Fi connection, or are you utilizing your provider? Because if you don't have one of them turned off, then
Pam, we got Pam that says that there's no chop. So just make sure, guys, if you guys are tuning in and it seems choppy at all, to check your internet connection. We got about 10-13 minutes here before Ron DeSantis makes his announcement. I got plenty of commentators here that are a lot more pro-Trump, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine. That's why I bring in, we got multiple different, on my panel today, we have multiple different perspectives. I've made it clear that I've become more DeSantis, and I have been kind of since the end of 2020. We have DPB. DPB, where does your heart lie right now? If the election were held today for 2024, who would you vote for and why for the
Oh,
primary?
I didn't wear my Trump socks 2020 into studio, but it by all means, I'm with Trump, and that like Hannity, like Levin said today, I love DeSantis. I think DeSantis. I think Vivek. If I'm sorry, Vivek. If you're listening, of course you are. Um, I think they are the future of our party. You look at the fact, the bench that we have, and that's not to say that Ron DeSantis is a second string type of thing. I think actually he's a first stringer. And it's nice to have two guys, and I put this out on social media. It's nice to have two guys that could be our president. I think right now, for such a time as this is Trump's uh, basically nomination to either lose, and that would take I think it would take an act of God for Trump not to win at this point. Once again, as I told you, Kevin, and Dees, you might agree with me, the mega movement has not gone away. And
No.
typically in primaries, people like the mega movement show up and vote. I don't think that DeSantis is going to have the mainstream Republicans showing up in a primary in the numbers that he needs. And now, with additional candidates such as Tim Scott getting in, who's going to pull some votes, and across the board, those first 17 primaries, 17 state primaries, are critical, and they're winner take all. So once you have the winning percentage, which I believe Trump won't fall below 40 in any of those states, the 60% is left for the rest of them to divvy up. And that means that DeSantis is going to have to pull more than 40%. And I just don't think the pathway just isn't there. That's why I've always contended this wasn't the time for him. I really didn't think he would make the decision. Unfortunately, something's working behind the scene. There is one commenter here on social media on Trump's page that basically said something to the effect that let's see if I don't want to misquote this individual. This was put out by Pauline Gracia from Substack. Any Republican who challenges Trump is not America first. What do you think about that?
I saw that, and I pointed that out, that was a thing that was posted onto Truth as well, on a Truth Social, that Trump had even said. I just think that's wrong. I think that the reason why I think that's wrong is because that says that no other candidate can put America first. I think that's wrong. I genuinely think that a Democratic candidate could come out and put America first. There's none that are out there, and they would have to drastically go against the Democratic Party platform, but it could happen. That's the way I see it, is that you can put America first and you can have the ideology of America first, but believe that that former President Trump is not what America needs now.
Does Dee's got to buy time to get on?
That's the next thing I was going to say is Dees, I do want to know what you have to say. If the presidential election were held today, or the primary election, where would your heart lie?
It's kind of a trick question. I mean, anyone who's listened to the El Donzo and D show knows my opinion on Trump. I loved what he did for this country. No question. I would take 4 more years of that. My problem with him is his ego and just his unbelievable ability to get everybody to hate him. I think if he could tone it down a little bit and still do the great job that he's doing, and obviously people are going to talk trash, but I think he needs to just kind of back off of that. That being said, I tend to agree with David that I don't know that DeSantis is going to be able to pull enough to actually get the win here. And as I've speculated on our show as well, if by hook or crook somehow DeSantis does win, my next worry is that Trump will then just turn around and create his own party or independent or whatever, and he'll still take a significant amount of votes, and then we're back in the same boat that we're in right now.
Absolutely.
But gun to my head, I would say DeSantis, but I don't in my heart of hearts believe that it's going to happen. I think as far as what they can do for the country and their ideals and everything, I think that they're pretty much in line. If they could just kind of put all this stuff, under the bridge and work together, I think a very strong ticket would be Trump DeSantis for 4 years, and then Trump rides off into the sunset, and DeSantis takes us for the next 8.
But that's where I have a problem. That's the question I want to ask of Trump in response to DPB's bringing up of the if you challenge Trump for 2024, you're not America first. In response to that, my question to Trump would be, if I ever got a chance, the main question I'd like to ask of former President Trump is, who does he think and when should they who does he think would actually be his successor as the leader of the Republican Party? And when should they, I guess that is 2 questions, but when should they come into that power? Because the way I see it right now with Trump is after 2020, he had an amazing opportunity to say, hey, we have a great lineup. And DPB said this a lot. We have a great, and he even has said it about Ron DeSantis, is that we have a great lineup of young conservatives coming up. And I think barring maybe like Nikki Haley and Nikki Haley's probably the only one that I'd say is not necessarily included in this list, but the majority of the current Republican presidential candidates for 2024,
I would put Asa in there.
Yeah. The majority, maybe barring 1 or 2, are great possibilities, not just for president, but for congressional seats, senatorships, maybe certain delegations in a cabinet or something like that. We have a great lineup. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I see Trump at a minimum. Trump has an age issue, I think.
Yeah.
I have a major issue with somebody that's in their 80s being president.
Yeah.
That goes for both parties. Currently, Joe Biden, and that goes for Trump too. I just think there's an age issue there. Trump was coming to an age in his first term that was like, he's kind of getting up there. Now I think he's at a point where I think he needs to be a kingmaker.
What is Trump right now is what, 76?
74, right?
74? 78, I believe. Okay. Or no, I think he's 76, 77. 76. He'll be 78 if he were to win again. He'll be 78 if he were to come into office in 2024, which is the same age Joe Biden was in 2020.
And obviously a difference. So, I mean, Trump is fluid. And I think the thing that we're getting ahead of ourselves here, and I do believe this is purely political theater, and kudos to those guys, because I do think that Trump realizes that the future of America first lies with Ron DeSantis. He obviously is more conservative than Trump is, and he is the future of our party. And I do believe this is political theater, and it has us talking about it. But let's look at what Trump has endured over the past 7 years. And that's where I think that Trump is deserving to see this thing through. The swamp is not drained. Durham's report proves unequivocally that Obama, it's not anymore a question of when did Obama know and what did he know? Obama knew everything. Hillary is purely smoke and mirrors. So is Joe Biden. There's only one individual that is pulling the strings or having his strings pulled, and that is Barack Hussein Obama. I believe he is the leader of the deep state, and that's where we're at. And if not for Trump, we wouldn't be there, because ultimately, however Trump came through 2016 with the victory, up much to the chagrin of Hillary, who I heard was tipping over tables with $100, $200 bottles of champagne on it and throwing glasses across the room because somebody had obviously made a faux pas. That's where we're at today. And if not for Trump, the swamp would have continued to go on. What would this country look like? I think D's would probably be shopping at Target, getting you one of those fancy swimsuits. I think he's wanting to say something.
Yeah, you want to say something, D's? We can't hear you.
Oh,
I think
there
there's
is.
something.
His mic went off.
We got to unmute
My
you.
timing. Hold on.
Yeah, you muted yourself there, D's.
How about now?
Now we can hear you.
All right. I don't know how that happened. I was going to say, for one, who says I don't already have one of those swimsuits? and now I had another joke too, and I forgot it because I was worried that you couldn't hear me. Live radio, folks.
Well, everybody, as D's is slipping what's on his mind, I do want to take a quick moment to give these guys
call
a
me
shout
Joe
out.
Biden.
I do want to take a quick moment to give these guys a shout out. They do amazing work as well. I've been obviously getting us onto a lot of visual mediums, but with that, on this station, Cities 92.9, if you guys are not on our on Facebook and watching us through there, and you're on my YouTube, my Twitch, my Rumble, anything like that, I do want to give a shout out to them. They do a lot of great work and do different kinds of commentary, similar to myself, but from a very different perspective. And so I want to make sure you guys can see in the comment section. I said I have my link there to subscribe to the Aldonzo and D's show. Donzo couldn't join us tonight. He's working like average Americans should. And so he's working right now, but they do a great show. They have a great interview coming up sometime. It'll be posted, I believe, this weekend with Chrissy Mayer.
By the weekend, yeah, with
Chrissy Mayer, who's a comedian, and she's a conservative comedian, does a lot of really funny and also great work and advocacy for the conservative movement. And then we also have DPB right in the middle there. I have his show just as much plugged in there. I produce his show. He has a lot of great guests all the time. A few weeks ago, former Illinois governor candidate Darren Bailey, as well as last week, Stephanie Trussell talking about Vivek Ramaswamy's visit to Illinois.
Guess who I'm having this Sunday?
And who are you having this Sunday, DPB?
Ray Estrada. I love his
Ray
accent.
Estrada.
Man alive, are we in for a great candidate in the 17th Congressional District of Illinois.
Ray, that was the guy on chips, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Punch. Wasn't it Punch?
Yes,
Punch, yeah.
So
he came out of retirement.
So yes, everybody, we have an amazing, and here's the thing is that Cities 92.9 and the radio station that we're a part of does something and offers something that almost no other company does. We do local news stories and bring them to a national level. Recently, you might have seen there was a story that came out about a Central Illinois teacher that was promoting pornography in her classroom for 7th to 8th graders. What school was that at again, or what county? Hayworth, Illinois.
Junior high.
Yeah, for most of you out there, if you're not from Illinois or Central Illinois, then it's a small town, local Illinois school, Central Illinois, near the farmland, and she was promoting pornography in her classroom. Had assignments that had to do with watching the Pornhub documentary on Netflix, and so and we started that story. We broke that story, and then NBC picked it up, ABC. Fox News, everyone picked that story up, and we are doing that. We are bringing you conservative content from the local level and making sure that it relates to the national narrative and everything that's going on. And so make sure you guys are checking us out, because we are doing something that no one else does. And we really appreciate any and all support you give to myself and the rest of the channel.
Deez, could you ever have dreamt that a junior high teacher would be assigning homework of pornography?
No, that is absolutely, especially in a small town like that. That was the bigger shock to me. You know, if that news would have come out of like Bloomington or Normal or Chicago, something like that, it would have been a little more believable. But for a town that size, what does Hayworth have? 2,000, 3,000?
Yeah,
if that.
2,000. Yep.
You know, and yeah, that was a big shock to me.
Yep.
Okay, so it looks like it should be starting right about now, this event. I'm trying to figure out how this works, right? Because it's on Twitter Spaces. And so I believe I might have it up now, but I want to make sure that.
So it's not on standard Twitter.
Well, it's on Twitter. It's on Twitter, but it's like I think it might be their audio. I'm going to see everything that I can do to make sure that we can hear.
Is this on Elon's page, or is it on?
Elon.
Oh, that's right.
I'm looking at everywhere because I was trying to see how I could get it brought up beforehand, but it's not a super simple. It's not as easy as
Twitter Spaces sucks. I'll just put it like that. They need to have something a little more intuitive.
I was hoping there'd be a visual medium or something to this, but I don't know. We're gonna figure this out.
Should we Google Ron DeSantis?
I'm just trying. I'm working on making sure that it's up
not
here
Google. You know, search him.
Let me.
Or Tucker Carlson. Maybe Tucker's hosting
it. It's not Tucker.
He should.
So this is what I'm on right now.
Okay.
But I can't hear anything, and I figured when I opened it up, this is what Twitter Spaces is supposed to look like. And I thought that I'd be able to hear something. I'm going to pull it up on my phone too. Maybe I'm able to hear it on my phone and just not on the website one. We're working this out, guys. This is the thing about having it so unconventional. It makes it so it's not necessarily a very easy. Maybe it's easier than I'm making it, but
he's got a commercial.
Okay, on my screen, let's see. Oh no, that just goes to that same thing.
I got a link here from a buddy. I have had a lot of people watching this for me, so I can make sure. Okay.
Maybe they're just running late.
I do see a commercial that just
Yeah, I'm running for president to lead our great American comeback.
Let's play that.
Minute 14 seconds.
I know. I was thinking though that maybe during this live that we'd hear specifically from him during this Elon Musk live stream.
You think it would be trending?
I believe it is, or at least it's.
Boy,
Yeah,
if
it says
it's not.
Florida governor is trending right now.
Okay, that's a good sign.
Yep. Let me see I'm still trying to figure out how to work.
Which is going to be the case as we start making these announcements utilizing social media platforms. I believe that his unique approach to this will propel other candidates to follow his lead.
So right now they're still allowing people to join in to populate it. I can see that Elon Musk is muted as well as another speaker that's in there is muted.
There's Terrence Williams on there going, come on in, come on in, come on in, come on in. Isn't that what Ty does too?
I think, I don't know if Ty, maybe he does. I think Ty is live right now on his own channel. But let me join their space. So I'm going to keep in this space and wait for it to start. But in the meantime, I can also pull up the Ron DeSantis ad and we can watch that and react to that.
Minute 14 I want to hear about.
Yeah, it is Ron DeSantis Twitter. Thanks everybody on the live stream who is bearing with us. Again, this is the technological age, and while I am only 22, I am only as good as I can try to be. So,
Kev, is my background better for you?
I do like the Kiss flag.
Do you even know who Kiss is? You're 22 years old.
I know Gene Simmons. I know.
Okay.
Paul Stanley. Ace
Frehley, Gene Simmons and his tongue. Yeah.
Peter Criss.
Are you kidding me? Detroit Rock City is what I listen to before I go out to the bars to get myself ready.
All right. There you go.
SATURDAY.
I love Love Gun too. Love Gun, phenomenal song.
Yes. Love Gun is a good song. Good for you, Kevin.
So there's hope for the youth of this country yet.
That's right. A little culture from Kevin Phares. He's going to do that on his next speech list.
We were talking about, I think at some point, Donzo and Deez and I will all come in and we're gonna do like a music live stream together where we're
absolutely
where we're in Donzo's studio and we just react to some different songs. So it looks like Ron DeSantis is now in the Twitter space on Elon Musk's Twitter space. So
were you able to grab that video?
I do have that video ready. I want to make sure I don't want to get us cut off, but here is I'm getting it set up here. I know that David probably just heard it. I don't think anybody else did, but
I
heard
it. Okay. Yep. I can't hear anymore, but I heard it.
So here is the announcement video that was just posted to Ron DeSantis's Twitter. And so we're going to watch this and make sure everybody can see it. I'm going to get it to be the full screen. But here is this video.
Our border is a disaster. Crime infests our cities. The federal government makes it harder for families to make ends meet, and the president flounders. But decline is a choice. Success is attainable, and freedom is worth fighting for. Righting the ship requires restoring sanity to our society, normalcy to our communities, and integrity to our institutions. Truth must be our foundation, and common sense can no longer be an uncommon virtue. In Florida, we proved that it can be done. We chose facts over fear, education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder. We held the line when freedom hung in the balance. We showed that we can and must revitalize America. We need the courage to lead and the strength to win. I'm Ron DeSantis, and I'm running for president to lead our great American comeback.
2028. I'm sorry.
You're awful, DPP. I got literal chills right now, everybody. I have chills. I am so excited. That, to me, that is the future of not only America, but the Republican Party, the conservative movement. To me, I am so excited for that. And so, frankly, I think it's amazing. Pam, I do notice that there was no flag on the lapel pin, on his lapel. Okay.
Oh.
Oh,
Wow,
I
wow.
believe what we have right now is the start of the
Is that
Twitter Spaces.
the reverb?
That's what that
Okay.
noise is.
All right, here we go.
But
Not that it's already
It's-
official, but here's the official
well,
announcement.
the thing is too. So there's also I also did have it hasn't quite. Oh, it is starting now. Okay, we're gonna share my
hey.
screen here. Okay, here is the Twitter Spaces.
Elon is sitting next to me, and we want to welcome you to this historic Twitter Spaces event, and more broadly, a first in the history of social media. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce two individuals who've done more to loosen the grip.
Ooh, we lost it.
We lost it. Yep. And it's not that we lost it. I'm pretty sure that it's the speaker that lost it. Let's see what's going on here.
It's Elon's.
Maybe they won't let me live stream it. I don't know. Maybe they can tell that I'm live streaming. Like,
oh,
you got to join the space. I don't know.
Oh,
let's see what we got here.
That's a first. Okay, should I do it from my phone?
All right, sorry about that.
Here we go.
Sorry about that. So many people here that I think
You crashed it.
We are kind of melting the servers.
You're melting.
That's crazy.
All right, I'd like to just introduce the folks in the room here. So it's safe to say we wouldn't be making history without the man sitting next to me, Elon Musk. His decision to purchase this platform last year to restore it to its original mission as a beacon for free speech, and even to expose Twitter's past complicity with a government censorship regime might have surprised many, but not those of us who've known and worked with Elon for nearly a quarter century. His commitment to freedom and his willingness to put his money where his mouth is.
That's not me. I want everybody to know that's not me.
Government, elite institutions, and corporate media. Go ahead and send a heart up if you want to say thank you, Elon.
Oh my God.
Governor DeSantis first drew my attention and support when I saw how he responded to the COVID pandemic and refused to believe what we now know to be the many falsehoods that government experts and their media mouthpieces were feeding us. He kept Florida's schools open and its economy thriving, while my state of California chose 2 years of learning loss and lockdowns that we have yet to fully.
I know. I want you guys to know. So here's what I'm going to do. So this is still, so here's what's going to happen during a lot of this is right now, even their servers are melting. Too many people are trying to get in on this. Sorry that there's not really a great visual medium. I really am kind of that's something, and I'm a Ron DeSantis fan, but I am unhappy with the fact that there is no visual medium. I think that's awful, especially in 2023 to not have a visual medium. That's the whole reason why we started streaming as a radio station, is because it is so imperative to have a visual medium. 320,000. There's over 320,000 people trying to watch this right now. The reason why the audio is not working is because has nothing to do with on my side of it or on our side of it. And I want that known because we're just running here out of two cameras that are zip tied up and with a stream link to.
We've got audio.
We have visual. We do have great audio. I'll give it that.
We got both of them. We'll just take over from here and make his announcement.
Here's the other thing: is we also do not have 300,000 people trying to watch us, but it's crazy to me that they can't get that they don't. But it feels like they weren't prepped for this. But the headlines, I can tell you, will highly likely be that they are melting the Twitter sphere. It's not even live.
There we go. We do appreciate the few people that are.
I love that Caitlyn Jenner was listed at the top and Ron DeSantis was like in row 3.
I'm still trying to. Here's Elon.
Okay.
Let's see. So,
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
Elon,
Just to simplify this.
Elon, you're sending rockets to space. Come on.
It's freezing bad. Let's see if even on my phone it'll work better.
Here, let me see.
So I can really see that if it's my problem. But I genuinely think that this is all right now. Twitter's servers are going crazy and having an inability to actually process the amount of people that are trying to watch this.
No, it says preparing to launch. Well,
preparing to launch is the title of it.
Well, that's
been the title of it.
Yeah.
It's not like a.
Oh, I got it.
Upwards of 400,000 people trying to, but it keeps crashing, and he just said it, right?
Oh, there's a delay between ours.
Yeah. My phone is making it work. I don't think it's our computer. I think it's just the fact that it does keep crashing.
We just said that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so it really depends on who and where you are. It's
Just so you know, Trump's going to have a little fodder with it.
oh, this is going to be well. And like I said, I am a DeSantis fan. Everybody, I am a DeSantis fan. If the primary election were held today, I would vote for DeSantis. But this is an awful look for a start of a campaign.
No,
Yeah, not
is
just Trump. Everybody is gonna roast this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, you try to go onto a new medium, and this is the way it goes. Look, I get it. You have 400 to 500,000 people, if not more, trying to log in on
when they have tried to do a practice session,
Right?
What are we talking about? Practice? What are you talking? Is that what we're talking about? Practice?
Yep, you can see 458,000 people. I keep trying to do everything I can to.
Governor DeSantis,
here we go.
make this
Mine continues to crash.
Yeah, I think so does Elon's, and it's
Is it working on your phone still, or?
Let me check. I'm gonna pull it back up because it crashed on my phone.
Mhm.
My phone actually entirely bumped me out of Twitter.
Really?
Yeah.
So even Twitter's crashing for you. Deez, do you have? Just figure we should all be trying this. I mean,
Mine says unable to fetch space.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Look, I think here's what's going to happen, everybody. And I'm even losing viewers on, like, I have less people watching now. And I think it's because this is crashing so much. I'm trying my best to make this work, but it's not on my end. This is all Twitter's fault.
Well,
Obviously, there is a Trump supporter there pulling wires.
It's said like Forrest Gump giving his speech, and
Right?
yeah. Oh, look at that! Now we got music. It's Space Force.
That's coming from Elon, right? That music.
Yeah.
I hope so, or we've got other forces
think it
at
is.
work.
It looks like it's coming.
It
from
sounds
Elon,
like
too.
Close Encounters of the worst kind.
Oh my gosh! This isn't.
Oh, I've got it too
Yep,
on my phone.
Okay, we've got it now.
Everybody's
So-
got it.
So that's what's going on, everybody, right now. The announcement is obviously delayed because Twitter is crashing because so many people are trying to watch it. And I think that's going to be the narrative that's pushed. Is one side is going to say this is, and it is an awful look. Objectively, this is an awful look, but one side is going to focus on that it's an awful look, and the other one's going to say, "Wow, it's so great that obviously
many
Ron
people.
DeSantis has so much support because so many people are trying to log in that it literally crashed Twitter." And maybe
You
that
know
was
what
the
this
whole,
reminds me
maybe that
of?
was the whole point.
Joe Biden's going to say it's the good strategy. You just shouldn't have anybody watch you. Then it goes through okay. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Deez. I'm sorry.
Kev, you won't know anything about this, but Dave, you might remember this. Way back in, I want to say about the mid 80s, before Geraldo Rivera blew up, he hosted, it was on prime time on one of the
The
major
Vault?
networks. Yes.
Capone's
the-
vault.
Al
I do remember
Capone's
Al
vault.
Capone's vault, and there was nothing inside of it.
Yeah, there was just like a couple of
Geraldo
old
was
beer
in there.
cans or whatever. Yeah. And like
hilarious.
everybody tuned in to see all these
Yeah.
riches they're gonna find and bodies and
Yeah.
whatnot. And it was just like somebody's empty garage. And that's what I feel like we're getting. right now.
Beginning of the conspiracy theories. Geraldo
Right,
had a
right.
big conspiracy theory
Yep.
then, and it definitely showed him for who he is.
Yeah, well, everybody, so I'm going to keep this up. We're going to keep talking here about some different things that has to do with this. We're going to keep monitoring Twitter because I want to get this announcement. I want to be able to react to this announcement with you guys. Obviously, we had the video that we played earlier. And I think overall, I think it's a good video. Like I said, it gave me chills. I think but it was also run of the mill. That's like, I'll also say that. And I'm saying all this as a DeSantis supporter. I think it was run of the mill. It was exciting for somebody who supports DeSantis. But it wasn't really anything. It was
Your
I'm a
standard cookie
conservative.
cutter announcement.
it was pretty stun reactions to almost every other announcement since I started my YouTube. And I think he's going to have to. I think Ron DeSantis, what he's going to have to do is push a significant amount on his Florida record, especially at the end of this most recent session. He has some of the most conservative policy pushed in any state in the history of America. And I think that's what he's going to have to run on. I know that one thing that I know will happen is he will get attacked on the fact that he has little to no foreign policy experience, because that's natural of almost any politician unless you served in the executive branch. Nikki Haley has foreign policy experience. Of course, Donald Trump has foreign policy experience. Ron DeSantis won't, because the executive branch is the only one that directly deals with foreign policy.
Well, and I think his
we've got this coming back here. We had it for a second.
Well,
Do we?
Kevin, yeah, his experience as leading, as an attorney in the Judge Advocate General's office, via the Navy SEALs, I think he does have a good handle on foreign policy.
I think he'll have
because of his military experience, and then as an attorney, and Florida basically is almost its own free country. Oh, there we go.
Governor DeSantis for this start.
We're just trying to get it going because there's so many people.
Okay.
It's unfortunate.
Once they actually get into content and everything for DPB, I'll control DPB, but D's, I'm going to mute us unless there's something we really have to say, because I do want to make sure everybody can hear everything that they have to say, but I'm not going to mute us until we know that they're actually going to be going, because even right now we got more silence. But I want to make sure that everybody can actually hear everything that goes on this, because if you're like me, Twitter Spaces is kind of a relatively new medium.
Althea says they're up to 500,000 people streaming.
Yep. There's upwards of 500,000 people. I do see that we have one of our hecklers in here. So the voice that you heard when you, so Elon was, who is this voice when it said 3 people? That was Elon, was the main one. And this is just on Elon's Twitter. I went to the other engineers' Twitter and they are working on it. Yeah, they're working on it a lot. It's obviously melting the servers, like that one guy said earlier. We're going to keep monitoring it. And once the actual announcement comes, we're going to make sure you guys can hear all of it. And we're going to react to it the whole time. I'm going to be taking notes on the things that are said. As I'm sure DPB will be taking notes, if not mental notes as well, and D's, so that we can really kind of break down the good and the bad, because that's the thing. Like I've said before, I am clear that and I'm honest that I'm more of a Ron DeSantis supporter in terms of policy and what I think he could do for the conservative movement. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like I said, not having a visual medium, bad look. The fact that nothing's going, that this is going less than smoothly, more than less than smoothly, that's also not a good look. Let's see. I just got a Truth Social notification. Twitter malfunctions during Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' presidential. Let's go to Donald Trump right now and see what he's saying.
So Paul asked a good question. Presidential candidates do not run with a vice president candidate until the general election. Yep. So for the most part, oftentimes it's a question asked during the primary. Yes. Who are you considering for your vice president? But you do not end up picking a running mate until the primary usually is over. It's very rare. Not to say, I guess it could happen, but do you recall it ever happened? Do you know that it's happened? I'm sure that once you narrow down, I'm pretty sure around the end of the Democratic primary. For a primary, I just don't remember. Holy crap. Okay, well, sorry for interrupting you, but they just ended that. They just ended that entirely. This says preparing to launch ended 21 minutes. I don't know what they're going to do now. I'm going to keep following it, but it now says that that entire stream is ended. Maybe they're going to try to restart it. I don't know, but that means all 500,000 plus people that were in there have to go back in, are going to have to now try to go back in, or yeah, it says play recording. This is now just the recording of it that you can listen to.
Charlie Kirk just tweeted DeSantis should have used Rumble.
Honestly, that's not a bad idea. And speaking of which, let me check my Rumble, see if I have any
and Donald just said 40 seconds ago, I will shortly be putting out 2 videos on Truth Social. I think you will enjoy them. Make America great again.
I do see I've had some viewers on Rumble. If you guys are watching on Rumble, thank you so much. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. We're trying to follow this story for you and everything. They're just not making it easy with with the fact that they've had it. Now they're restarting it. Now it's just a recording.
Team DeSantis just tweeted, "It seems we broke the internet with so much excitement, ..
What did I say?
Yeah, there you go.
While you're waiting, donate now."
Donate now. And then, of course, Trump took advantage. The Sanctimonious raised much of his money during his run for governor, which in theory cannot be used for his current escapade.
Yep.
And before his poll numbers tanked, and wow, exclamation point, did they tank?
Wow.
You almost can hear his voice. I wonder if Ron DeSantis is Governor DeSantis is also going to tour and have rallies like Trump is, because Trump's scheduled rallies are still out there in all of the primary states, the first primary states.
This really, like I said, so this is exactly what I said was going to happen. Go back. If you're just tuning in now, go back 10, 15 minutes. This is exactly what I was going to say happen. This is exactly what I said was going to happen. It seems we broke the internet with so much excitement, like Dee's brought up. While you're waiting, donate now. This is exactly what I said. One side is going to make it all about how, oh my gosh, we broke the internet, so great. And like, what exactly did Trump say again? DPB? Maybe I can go find it, pull it up on screen.
On which one? On which time? The Sanctimonious?
The most recent. The most
recent way, and he's going to be putting out 2 videos on Truth Social. I think you will enjoy them. Make America Great Again.
I see that he has a video up on that was posted 10 minutes ago.
This was 40 seconds ago. Let me reload to see.
I'm going to share my screen for what I have on Truth, and we're going to watch whatever this is now, because
he just put up something 10 minutes ago, but I don't think that's what he was referring to.
Well, I do see that's what I have up here right now is what he posted 10 minutes ago. Let's go specifically to his account, see everything that he's done.
3 minutes ago, he said, I will shortly be putting out 2 videos. So 3 minutes ago, so that video.
Let's watch whatever it is.
Oh, that is. Look at
Ron DeSantis was struggling big time in his primary race for governor of Florida. Polls revealed DeSantis was failing so bad, he was losing by a staggering 17 points. Then DeSantis was saved by the endorsement of President Trump's support was so powerful. Just days after the endorsement, DeSantis took a commanding lead that propelled him to being elected governor.
I'd like to thank our president for standing by me when it wasn't necessarily the smart thing to do.
You're welcome, Ron. Unfortunately, instead of being grateful, DeSantis is now attacking the very man who saved his career. Isn't it time DeSantis remembers how he got to where he is?
Make America great again. Build the wall. Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired." I love that part.
Truth is, there's only one person who can make America
That's what I'm
great
saying.
again.
That's
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
They were ready. If Kevin, do you know what T-ball is? Well, I'm just telling you, that's T-ball right there.
Yeah.
Kill shot.
Few things. First off, very funny ad, very Trump ad. Like that is a very Trump ad. A few things. One, I do want to say, like, I do think it's a good ad overall, and like you said, it was set up perfectly for him to do so. But he also does say a lot in there that he did endorse Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is he also said that Ron DeSantis is now attacking Trump. Maybe I missed it, but I feel like Trump is attacking Ron DeSantis tenfold what DeSantis has said about Trump at any time.
Political theater. He's going to say exactly the fact that Trump thrives on one word: loyalty. And yours truly can tell you that. I obviously have had opportunities extended to me through the Trump team, and he appreciates it and he commends it. I love Bongino's story. 2 years ago, Dan got started on radio, and Dan had a bout with cancer. And lo and behold, out of the blue.
I'm sorry for interrupting, David, but
you got it.
So I've been told that they're talking now. I'm trying to get into it. I'll show you what I have on my screen. It says details not available, and it will not let me into it. So that's just wonderful. Obviously, the recording from the old one is still there. I'm trying to figure out how to get into the spaces. Maybe if I reload my Twitter, it'll allow me in here.
Oh boy,
let's go to Elon.
Fire. But what I was saying is you're getting that is the man that behind Trump is not the man you see as a politician. That is purely, and he does a great job. It's purely a facade. I wouldn't want to be in, obviously contesting him, either, but I do know that he's a good-hearted human being who cares about people, and that side of Trump you don't see.
You're right. I'm sorry. I've been trying to just figure out how I'm supposed to get into this. Can you check your phone and see if,
Yeah, I sure will.
Mine just keeps saying unable to fetch space.
yeah, details not available is all I'm getting. Yeah. What are you on, Althea? So I can try to find that. If you could let me know. Maybe she was able to get in. Maybe they only let like 10 people in this time or something. It does say that there's over 500,000 views on it already. 580. It keeps going up. Search. Maybe I'm doing everything I can to find it for you guys here. Ron and Elon is trending, obviously. Yep,
I think the entire Twitter
is crashed.
platform is offline.
It's not necessarily offline, but it's glitching a lot.
Well, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get onto it on my phone.
Offline.
Doing everything we can, guys. Wanted to be able to bring this to you.
Glitching is
David Sachs seems to have it up. Let me see about David Sachs.
David Sachs.
Okay. Who was the entrepreneur that
introduced
him earlier, or tried to at least. Listen live. Here we go. Join the space. Do you guys see what's happening? I'm literally trying to click it, join the space, and it won't let me.
Yeah, I'm just constantly refreshing. Yeah.
Now it's details not available again.
I've got it.
And our results
here we
in
go.
Florida
I got
have
it
been
out
second
here
to
too.
none. We can and we must deliver big results for America. I pledge to be an energetic executive that will take on the important issues. Biden's pursued inflationary policies that are hurting working people. We will reverse those policies and we'll build an economy where working Americans can achieve a good standard of living. Biden's opened the southern border and allowed massive amounts of drugs to pour into the country. We'll shut down the border, construct a border wall, and hold the drug cartels accountable. Biden's embraced medical authoritarianism, such as unconstitutional COVID vax mandates. We will ensure that those violations of liberty can never happen again. Biden's allowed woke ideology to drive his agenda. We will never surrender to the woke mob, and we will leave woke ideology in the dustbin of history. Biden's also politicized the military and caused recruiting to plummet. We will eliminate ideological agendas from our military, focus the military on the core mission, and we will reverse the poor recruiting trends. Finally, Biden's weaponized the power of the administrative state to advance his left-wing agenda. We will reconstitutionalize the executive branch and we'll bring the administrative state to heel. Now, you can't do any of that if you don't win. There is no substitute for victory. We must end the culture of losing that has infected the Republican Party in recent years. The tired dogmas of the past are inadequate for a vibrant future. We must look forward, not backwards. We need the courage to lead, and we must have the strength to win. And to voters who are participating in this primary process, my pledge to you is this. If you nominate me, you can set your clock to January 20th, 2025 at high noon, because on the west side of the U.S. Capitol, I will be taking the oath of office as the 47th president of the United States. No excuses. I will get the job done. Now, these past few years have given me a new appreciation for the fragility of our freedoms. I never thought I would see things in America that we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic, but our founding fathers were keenly aware of the fragility of freedom. When they framed our Constitution, they came armed with having studied the history of every republic and the history of mankind. And they noticed that all of those experiments only had one thing in common, and it was this. Every single one of them had failed. And so they knew it fell to our country, the United States of America, to determine whether people could really govern themselves. Could we have a society based on the idea that our rights are God-given, not government granted? and that society functions based on the rule of law, not the rule of individual men. And when Dr. Benjamin Franklin walked out of that convention, he was asked, did you deliver a republic or a monarchy? He said, a republic if you can keep it. They knew freedom didn't run on autopilot. They knew each generation would have a responsibility to safeguard freedom. And it's our responsibility to do so at this important juncture in our nation's history. We have a lot of work to do to ensure the country gets back on track. I ask everybody listening to please join me on this mission. Please invest in our campaign by going to rondesantis.com and making a donation. Thank you. God bless. And I look forward to the discussion.
All right. Thank you, Governor. Appreciate that. I guess just as a first follow-up here, thank you for putting up with these technical issues. I think we're definitely breaking new ground here. As far as I know, no major presidential candidate has ever announced their candidacy on social media this way, certainly in a Twitter space. So thank you for doing that. What made you want to kind of take the chance of doing it this way, as opposed to just doing it on cable news or the usual way?
Well, when COVID hit, I had to make decisions about, do you go with the crowd or do you look at the data yourself and cut against the grain? And I chose to do the latter. I faced huge blowback for doing that from the bureaucracy, from elites, from the media. But my view was I had to look out for the people I represented, prefer protecting their jobs over trying to safeguard my own political hide. But it was very, very lonely in a lot of those decisions. And part of the reason it was so lonely is because there was a concerted effort to try to stifle dissent. There was an official narrative about lockdowns, about closing schools, about forced masking, about all these different things that we had to navigate during COVID. And it was an orthodoxy being enforced by the major tech platforms in conjunction with the federal government. And if we can't have an honest debate in a free country about issues that affect hundreds of millions of people, like lockdowns, then what good is the First Amendment at that point? Those are precisely the times when we needed to have debate be robust. You should not be taking down articles that criticize those draconian policies, and yet that's exactly what happened. So it occurred to me that if that had continued, I think free speech in this country was on its way out the door. And so when Elon Musk stepped up to purchase Twitter, he paid a lot of money for it. And I'm sure because he's a good businessman, Elon, I'm sure you'll end up making money off it. But bottom line is you had to put your money where your mouth is, because I think you recognize that you can't have a free society unless we have the freedom to debate the most important issues that are affecting our civilization. That did not happen during COVID. The truth was censored repeatedly. And now that Twitter is in the hands of a free speech advocate, that would not be able to happen again on this Twitter platform. So I think what was done with Twitter is really significant for the future of our country. We cannot have a society in which government is colluding with major tech platforms to enforce an orthodoxy.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're absolutely committed to freedom of speech and a level playing field, and just a vigorous debate. And hopefully this can be a platform that brings people of divergent political views to exchange those views, and perhaps some minds will be changed one way or the other. And but it's just incredibly important, as you highlight, that the First Amendment is irrelevant if all the media and all the government are operating in lockstep. It makes the most important amendment, the one that was most urgently added to the Constitution, moot if you cannot have free and open debate. So Twitter was indeed expensive, but free speech is priceless.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Governor, I'm going to ask some questions while we get some other kind of speakers in the queue to ask questions. I think maybe some people knew this announcement was coming because there's been no shortage of hit pieces on you in the press over the last week or two. I want to ask you about some of these accusations that are being leveled at you. Last week, the NAACP issued a travel advisory against your state, claiming that Florida is not a safe place for minorities to visit. What do you say to those who've been advised that somehow they aren't welcome in your state?
Claiming that Florida is unsafe is a total farce. I mean, are you kidding me? You look at cities around this country, they are awash in crime. In Florida, our crime rate is at a 50-year low. If you look at the top 25 cities for crime in America, Florida does not have a single one amongst the top 25. And if you look at cities like Baltimore and Chicago, you got kids more likely to get shot than to receive a first-class education. Yet I don't see the NAACP batting an eye about all the outrage and the carnage that's happening in those areas. So this is a political stunt. These left-wing groups have been doing it for many, many years. And at the end of the day, what they're doing is colluding with legacy media to try to manufacture a narrative. Now, the good news is fewer and fewer Americans are gullible enough to believe this dribble. And platforms like Twitter are there where people can debunk these lies in real time. And I would just say, as an American citizen, if you are uncritically accepting narratives spun by legacy media and left-wing groups, you're failing at your job of being a conscientious citizen. And I think people just see right through it. And oh, by the way, have any of these travel advisories, because they've been doing this for a while, all these left-wing groups, have any of them worked? Well, we're the #1 state for net in-migration and have been every year since I've been governor. We just capped the highest quarter for tourism in the history of the state of Florida. And our view is we want everybody to succeed regardless of their skin color. We don't divvy up people by race. At the same time, it is worth pointing out that we have in Florida more Black-owned businesses than any state in the nation. And we've also had more African Americans lead state agencies under my administration than at any time in Florida history. But with us, they're there because of merit, not because we're trying to play identity politics. And if you want to look at education, the Black students in Florida perform much higher than Black students in most other states. We rank #3 in 4th grade reading and #2 in 4th grade math amongst our Black student population. And oh, by the way, the head of the NAACP lives in Florida, and a lot of their board members have put out on social media during my governorship Florida vacations where they seem to be having an awful good time.
That's great. Well, I mean, Florida's a great state, and I think the people realize that. Some of the things that are being said are just truly absurd. I mean, I saw some headline from The Atlantic basically claiming that anyone who listens to this Spaces on Twitter is basically a Nazi.
That was The Atlantic, and then Vanity Fair said that that you were hosting or interviewing because David Duke wasn't available.
Oh yes.
Although I'm not totally sure who they were saying was David Duke. I don't know if it was you or Governor DeSantis. It's sort of a little bit unclear, but
I think this is a function of the legacy media, these corporate journals. They're in their little bubble. And to draw allusions to stuff like that, I mean, how crazy do you have to be? But in their little bubble, it sounds like they're making some type of profound point. And so part of, I think, what Twitter is standing for is people should be exposed to different viewpoints. And I think the elites in our society have tried to cluster themselves to where their assumptions are never challenged. And that's not a good way, I think, to live. It's also not a good way to be a critical thinker, because no one's ever going to question obviously wrong assumptions because everybody around you shares them.
Absolutely.
And I think they become totally hysterical because they don't like the idea that their control over the media is being, disintermediated.
Yeah.
Because now, candidates for president can just speak directly to people through platforms like Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, the amazing thing about Twitter and things like Spaces are that, although I happen to be hosting it, I had to switch over to David hosting it because my account was actually
there's too much interest.
But my account was breaking the system. But there's really never been a mechanism before where someone could address the nation, or anyone who wanted to listen to them could, from anywhere in the world. United States or anywhere. So I think this is a really profound change. And it's also like it's not just whether the media reports something and an article is true or not. Even more powerful is deciding what the narrative is. And
Totally.
so, it's just like, if there's only so much you can actually fit in a newspaper or a magazine, and there's only one thing you really put on the cover of a magazine. So that whoever's deciding that is deciding to not talk about other things. Whereas with a public digital town square like we have here, it's possible for the public to choose the narrative. It empowers the people instead of a very tiny elite cabal, which I don't recognize the irony of using that phrase. But nonetheless, it's true, and you judge by the results that this is a means for the people to decide the narrative, and for the people to decide which way a debate will go, not sort of 5 editors in chiefs of a few newspapers, basically.
Yeah, and I think one of the really crazy things that happened during COVID is that social networks really started censoring dissenting viewpoints on COVID, medical viewpoints that ended up being totally correct in lockstep with what the mainstream media was doing. So basically, big tech platforms were undermining their main reason for existing, which is giving people a choice. And actually, there's somebody who I think knows more about that than any of us, which is Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who's a professor of medicine at Stanford. I want to pull him in here. Jay, you go ahead and unmute yourself if you can. It'd be great to hear from you. I know that during COVID, you worked with Governor DeSantis. It'd be great just to hear a little bit about your interactions and if you have a question for the governor.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute honor to work with Governor DeSantis, and I was really impressed by his decision making in the face of an absolute firestorm of criticism. But Governor, you did the right thing when you opened the schools. And my kids in California for a year and a half didn't see the inside of a classroom, whereas Florida kids were in school. And you can see it in the results, and the learning loss numbers are so much better in Florida. I'm really curious, Governor, as you're running for president, what are your thoughts about reforming the public health authority in the United States and the federal government, the CDC, the FDA, the NIH? How do you see reforms we need so that the mistakes of the lockdowns that happened during the pandemic don't happen again when there's another pandemic?
Well, first, we need an honest reckoning about what happened during COVID. And the only honest reckoning is that all of those agencies, all of the elites, the public health establishment, they failed. They instituted bad policies. Obviously, it's a novel virus, but I think what happened was when the data was becoming more and more apparent that the path they were on was wrong, they doubled down and wanted to do it even more. And I really believe had Florida not just kind of stood in the way, I think this country would have had rolling lockdowns for probably a 2-year period. And so their impulses were authoritarian. They were not following the data. And I think the US government needs to acknowledge the failures. And I think all of those agencies need to be cleaned out. What I saw just dealing with them was I saw a interest in the narrative and in politics over evidence-based reasoning and evidence-based medicine. And so I don't have confidence that those agencies are up to the task. And I think you need major overhaul of the whole enchilada with respect to public health in this country.
Can I follow up with that? I mean, I think the other thing that I saw during the pandemic, Governor, and you was subject to it just as much as I was when we were talking about COVID. YouTube censored a video of us speaking about in a roundtable that you hosted on COVID policy. There's so much of the federal government infrastructure went into suppressing honest scientific discussion during the pandemic. So it's not just public health agencies, but other agencies inside the federal government that worked to suppress the speech of Americans. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about it.
No question. So I'm actually in Florida. We recognize the danger there. So I'm actually going to be signing a digital bill of rights for Florida pretty soon, which will bar all state and local government officials from colluding or working with a technology company for the purpose of censorship of speech. Because you're exactly right. You had people in the White House, you had people in all these other agencies working with these platforms to try to take it down. And oh, by the way, what did they censor Dr. Bhattacharya for? It was a roundtable discussion that I led and convened. We had Dr. Bhattacharya, MD, PhD from Stanford. We had Martin Kulldorff from Harvard Medical School, and we had Sunetra Gupta from Oxford, who was generally viewed as one of the best epidemiologists across the pond until she became anti-lockdown. So these are all eminent people. And what are we discussing? We're discussing whether there's any scientific basis to force a school child to wear a mask for 8 hours a day. They all agreed there was no basis to do it and that you should not have school mask mandates. YouTube thought that that was, quote, anti-science and that that should be taken down. But even at that point, we had already had enough experience in Florida where you had some schools that had done it before the state banned the mandates. You had some schools that had done it, some schools didn't, and the results were no different. And yet his video was taken down by Google YouTube. So it was a huge, huge problem. And yes, I think the federal government, FBI, DHS, any of the health agencies, it's unconstitutional for them to be delegating speech restriction to a private company. You can't do indirectly what the Constitution would clearly forbid you to do directly.
Let me pull in. We have Congressman Thomas Massey. If you're there, go ahead and unmute yourself. I mean, what we're talking about here is, I think, really unconstitutional actions by federal agencies. Congressman Massey, I know that you've been involved in this problem of government agencies being weaponized and used against the American people in an inappropriate way. Do you have a comment on this? And do you have a question for Governor DeSantis?
Well, first of all, let me say a big thank you to Elon Musk for buying Twitter and exposing all of this. On our weaponization committee, we wouldn't know so much of it if he hadn't done this, almost as a public service to the First Amendment. It's a disturbing trend. Government, as the governor said, the government is colluding with big corporations. We found out this week from an FBI whistleblower that Bank of America voluntarily gave names of and information on anybody who bought a hot dog in Washington, D.C. from January 5th to January 7th, and then overlaid that with gun purchases that they had on record anywhere in the country for any period of time. And just, they say they voluntarily gave that to the FBI. So that's disturbing to me. By the way, I've never met Elon Musk, but I'm one of your biggest fans. I'm the first congressman to have a Tesla. I'm on Starlink, and I would have bought a Powerwall, but I'm off the grid, and you wouldn't sell me one, so I had to make one with a wrecked Model S, and it's been running our house for 5 years. But my
and just for the record, I was with Thomas our first year in Congress. He's got the Tesla, but his license plate is Kentucky Coal. So it's he's probably one of the only people that have that in the country.
Thanks for outing me, Governor DeSantis. But no, so Governor DeSantis, my question to you is, you served here in Congress for 6 years with me. And why is it that Congress is so feckless at reining in these government agencies? And what do you think we need to do? And if you were president, what would you urge Congress, or what bills would you like to see and sign to rein in this, sort of overreach of government bureaucracy?
Well, first, I think there's a lot that the executive branch can do, and all I will say when it comes to these agencies, we'll go into this a little bit more as the campaign goes on. But buckle up when I get in there, because the status quo is not acceptable, and we are going to make sure that we reconstitutionalize this government. And these agencies are totally out of control. There's no accountability, and we are going to bring that in a very big way. Now, part of the reason it's gotten so bad, power's been consolidated and effectively a fourth branch of government, because Congress hasn't used its two main powers that it has under the Constitution. First, the power of the purse. If an agency is engaging in conduct that is outside the realm of what is legal, or you think it's not good for the public interest, then you can remove the funding for those operations. There's nothing that they're not entitled to get the same level of funding every year, and yet Congress runs the government on autopilot, either continuing resolutions or massive omnibus spending bills. So these agencies are all bulletproof. They know that they're going to end up getting something similar or more every single year. and it creates an incentive for them to abuse their power. The other thing you can do is actually legislate, so you're not delegating to the bureaucracy key issues regarding how to enforce federal law. You should define what you want. All they should be doing is implementing. Instead, Congress will basically give an invitation for the bureaucracy to make really important substantive decisions. And so Congress may never vote on something, and the bureaucracy will cite a law from 20 years ago and do things that are going to transform our society or our country. That is not the way the founding fathers drew up the Constitution.
So would you sign the Reins Act? We passed it out of judiciary today.
Oh, yeah, no,
You
of
would-
course. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. That would, I think, be a great check for that. I also think that we're going to have a good chance to see some of this Chevron deference really curtailed or maybe even eliminated based on the U.S. Supreme Court's upcoming jurisprudence. And I think that's another reason why the bureaucracy has become so powerful, because courts have basically been told they can pretty much do what they want, and courts are supposed to just defer. I don't think that that's actually correct. I think the courts, they have to make a judgment about what does the law actually say, and you can't just defer to quote unquote experts in the bureaucracy.
Thank you.
All right, shifting gears, Governor, I want to ask you another topic that's been in the news a lot is Disney. They blamed you for canceling plans for $1 billion investment in Florida, said they were canceling 2,000 jobs. I saw other reports that suggested Disney was going to make the cuts anyway, and due to a larger, budget cutting initiative. Regardless of why they did it, why do you feel your fight with Disney remains important, considering you already beat them on the parental rights bill that they opposed? And what would you say to some of your opponents in this race who argue that the fight has dragged on too long?
So first of all, Florida stands for the protection of children. We believe jamming gender ideology in elementary school is wrong. Disney obviously supported injecting gender ideology in elementary school. They did oppose our parents' rights legislation. And the fact is, when they opposed it, that was a big deal, because for 50 years, anytime Disney wanted something in Florida politics, they pretty much got it. But not this time. I signed the bill. We did, as you say, win on the issue. But what happened was Disney's posturing, some of the other statements that their executives were making, kind of the corporate culture had really been outed as trying to inject matters of sex into the programming for the youth. And I think a lot of parents, including me, look at that and say, that's not appropriate. I mean, we want our kids to be able to just be kids. And that's kind of our mantra. So you had this setup that Disney engineered many decades ago, where they actually had their own government that they controlled with no accountability. They were exempt from the laws that all their competitors had to follow, massive tax breaks, and they even racked up municipal debt. And Florida basically put them on a pedestal many decades ago and joined the state with this one company at the hip. We just didn't feel that we were comfortable maintaining that relationship. And so we ended their self-governing status. So Disney has to live under the same laws as everybody. They got to pay the same taxes as everybody. And obviously they'll be responsible for those debts. So the reason why there's a quote fight is just because they filed a lawsuit against the state of Florida, trying to get their special privileges reinstituted. But I don't think that that's good policy. And I think some of these Republicans that are taking Disney's side, they're basically showing themselves to be corporatists, because these are all corporate goodies. This is not the way you would run a competitive economy. And the arrangement had really outlived its usefulness, but it persisted because Disney was so politically powerful. I think the company's ethos have changed in a way that's alienated a lot of people in our legislature and in Florida. And so there was really no justification to keep it. But make no mistake, they're suing to try to get special privileges. People are making money in Florida hand over fist because we have a great business climate. That's not good enough for them. They want to be treated differently than Universal and SeaWorld, and we don't think that that's appropriate. So, I think that they should withdraw the lawsuit, but obviously we're going to defend our actions because we think we have the right to do what we did.
It's funny, the media used to criticize Republicans for being in the pocket of big corporations, and now they're attacking you because you're not.
Well, not only that, David, it's interesting because the media in Florida for years had hammered Disney, and they would point out like that this was not a good arrangement because Disney was not accountable to anyone. I mean, when when the state control board took over this district, the firefighters came to the board and they said, hey, we weren't getting survivor benefits for some of these widows. And so the state control board actually paid out some of the benefits that they were getting stiffed on. There were a lot of people in Central Florida who were really thankful that there was some accountability being brought to bear because, I mean, you know, it's human nature. If there's no accountability over any individual or entity, of course, they're going to behave differently than if you have normal accountability. But the media was always very hostile to that. But just because I happen to be involved in bringing it back to reality and making sure that they were under the same laws, well, then all of a sudden they're running to Disney's defense. I mean, are you kidding me? And oh, by the way, on this project, you know, they had announced this many years ago. They had not done anything for it, but that is actually not in Reedy Creek. So that was in a different part of Orlando. And so none of the issues that are involved in their suit would have made a difference there. Obviously, as a publicly traded corporation, you know, they have a fiduciary duty to do what's best for their shareholders. So I'm assuming if they were in better financial shape and they saw the project as lucrative, they would have gone forward with it. But I think clearly they've had some problems with their stock price and a lot of other issues. And I'd also just finally point out, nobody probably has made Disney more money than me because they were open during COVID and they were closed in California. And that went on for many, many months, where literally I had all the theme parks in Florida opened in 2020. People are going, it's safe, they're having fun. And the California parks were closed. I think they were closed for over a year out in California. So we were, I think, a much better place to be doing business, certainly since I've been governor.
Great. Let me shift gears here to the topic of education. I want to pull Chris Rufo into the conversation. I know he work with you on some initiatives. I think, you know, one other thing that the mainstream media has, I think, bashed on is they've kind of started promoting this narrative that you want to ban books from school libraries. You refuse to teach kids about slavery or other unpleasant realities of American history, or pretend that gay people don't exist. Since many people, I think, in this room, we're now up to, wow, over 271,000 people. So this is, I think, totally unprecedented in terms of the numbers of people we have participating. By the way, I think Twitter's working much better now. I think it crashed because when you multiply 500,000 people in a room by an account with over 100 million followers, which is Elon's account, I think that creates just a scalability level that was unprecedented. But with my meager followership, it seems to be working much better.
Yeah, no, it's we have some scaling issues specifically related to my account. At one point in January, if I tweeted above a certain size, it would crash the servers.
Yeah.
And then anyone else who was tweeting at the same time would lose their tweet as well.
So in any
there's some
event,
scaling
yeah,
issues.
yeah. Well, we're breaking new ground here.
You know, it's good that there's scaling issues.
Yes, you know, you're breaking new ground when there are bugs and scaling issues. But in any event, back to the question I was asking you, Governor DeSantis, about education. The media has been, you know, saying you're trying to ban books. You refuse to teach kids about slavery. You want to say that gay people don't exist. What is the truth of the matter for people who maybe have never heard from you before? And then I want to pull Chris Rufo in on this as well.
Yeah, so the whole book ban thing is a hoax. There's not been a single book banned in the state of Florida. You can go buy or use whatever book you want. What we have done is empowered parents with the ability to review the curriculum, to know what books are being used in school, and then to ensure that those books match state standards and are age and developmentally appropriate. So, for example, parents have flagged books in schools that, for example, teach middle school kids how to use sex apps. That provide graphic depictions of sex acts and sex toys for people as young as 5th grade. And so clearly that is not appropriate to be in a middle school classroom. And so parents object and the schools take them out. I did a press conference that we called Exposing the Book Ban Hoax. And before I had the parents come up, before I spoke, I just played the video that had the images of the books that the parents had objected being in their kids' classroom. And the local news had to cut the feed because they said it was too graphic. Well, if it's too graphic for the 6 o'clock news, how is it okay for a 6th grader or a 5th grader? And so nothing's being banned. They're basically ensuring that we make curation choices that are consistent with state standards. And on the racial history, we eliminated critical race theory from our K through 12 schools. That was the right thing to do. In other words, we're not going to take a kid who comes in at 6 years old and say they're an oppressor or oppressed based on what their race is. That's divisive. That's wrong. We're also not going to be teaching people to hate their country. But what we are going to do is teach the accurate history. So in the same bill that banned critical race theory, we required teaching thoroughly about racial discrimination that occurred in American history. And Florida's history standards require all of those subjects from slavery, Reconstruction, segregation, all of that to be taught, and will continue to do that. So I think what you see is the left and the media colluding on this. They don't want to actually defend what it is that we are actually legislating or regulating. So they create these hoaxes that somehow you don't want kids to learn that slavery existed in America, which is preposterous. No one actually defends the offending material. And the question is why are there people intent on trying to get this stuff into the classroom? And I think it's part of a political agenda. So our mantra in Florida is this: purpose of the schools is education, not indoctrination. Yes, I think it's very inappropriate to have sexually explicit material in a fifth grade library, 100%. But it's also the case that if you're focusing on that type of instruction, there's an opportunity cost involved. Why shouldn't we be doing more on science or reading or math? And so I think we're getting it right. And I think almost invariably, and Chris Rufo's had to deal with this too, when they're trying to craft these narratives, you just peel back the onion, you realize that this is something they're manufacturing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I was actually under the impression that there were some books banned, so this is news to me.
And they actually, there was the one this week was that Miami-Dade County took a book that was about like poems from I think like Biden's inauguration, and they moved it from elementary school library to middle school library. The media tried to act like somehow this is being banned, and you actually had Miami-Dade County Public Schools spokesperson have to come out and say there's nothing that's been banned or removed. It was basically just determined that this particular book was better suited for middle school. And so they put it in the middle school media center. And the media tries to act like somehow that is offending something with a book ban. So, but I think part of the reason that they're doing that is because, there is actually a movement to ban books from like Amazon and some of these others. California, some municipalities have banned things like To Kill a Mockingbird. What they're trying to do is see if some of these books pass a woke test. And if they don't, they are going against some of those books. Whereas in Florida, you can buy whatever book you want. But that's a different question than what would be appropriate for a third grader or what would be appropriate for a sixth grader. Government, by definition, has to make those choices about what type of curriculum we want to put in front of our students. And the parents obviously have an important voice in that.
Absolutely. Well, in fact, a friend of mine, Tim Urban, who has a blog called Wait But Wine, is really one of the most reasonable people on earth and one of the most reasoned people I've ever met. Had a lot of trouble actually publishing his book, simply because it debated sort of sacred cows of woke ideology. But incredibly reasonable book. So that is the kind of de facto book banning and de facto book suppression that I see quite a lot of, is that the publishers are unwilling to take risks.
Let me shift gears here for a second, because I know we're running out of time. We're supposed to end, I think, around 4 Pacific. But thank you for giving us a little bit of extra time here, Governor. Shifting gears to a major federal issue, immigration. We see I've seen these videos on social media and on TV of what looks like just insanity at the border. What is your take on what's going on there, and how would you address that as president?
Well, I'd reverse what Biden's doing. You need to shut the border down. You should not be entertaining these asylum claims for people crossing illegally. Asylum is a legitimate thing, but these are people that when they come, I mean, they're being persecuted. These people coming overwhelmingly are economic migrants that are coming across many other different countries. They should be applying for asylum there if they were, truly qualifying for that, but they're not. They know that if they just show up at the southern border, and these are people all over the world that are coming illegally, they know that they will get a sheet of paper saying, okay, come back for a court date in 3 years, and they get released to the interior of our country. It's an absolutely insane system. So we'll stop that. We will move on day one by declaring a national emergency. We will construct a border wall. We will make sure we have remain in Mexico and that we're not entertaining those claims in that way. And we really need to hold the Mexican drug cartels accountable because they're facilitating a lot of this migration. They obviously make money off of it. They treat a lot of these people very horribly as they're trafficking them through Mexico and into the United States. And of course, the cartels have been responsible for moving massive amounts of fentanyl into this country. And that's killing tens of thousands of Americans every year now. And what they're doing is they lace the other types of drugs with the fentanyl. So you may have like a teenage kid doing something they probably shouldn't do, but in prior generations would not have been fatal. And now, if it's laced with fentanyl, these kids can overdose and die. And so mothers are losing kids as a result of this fentanyl epidemic. And I just don't think you could allow these criminal organizations to continue poisoning our population. So it'll be a day one issue. We will bring overwhelming amount of resources to deal with it. And we are going to stop this insanity once and for all.
There's a, I think, follow-up question on immigration from Steve Dace, who is a national radio personality and I think an important commentator in the great state of Iowa. Steve, do you have a comment or question? I think you just need to unmute. If Steve can unmute, then we'll go ahead and ask him for a question. If not, we'll keep rolling here. All right, 3, 2, going, gone.
I'm there,
All right,
guys.
sorry, Steve.
I'm there, guys.
Oh,
Sorry.
there you go.
He is.
All right.
Yeah, my bad. First of all, I want to echo what Congressman Massey said to Elon. Elon, if I put down money on January 1st, 2022, that Twitter was going to be the last bastion of free speech on earth, brother, I'd be about as rich as you are on that bet right now. I mean, it's incredible what you have done here and the restoration of a lot of accounts of people that were truth tellers and were ran from here for telling the truth. I saw a meme the other day that said, of course, you have scientific consensus when you censor all the scientists who disagree. So I wanted to just say, first and foremost, on behalf of a lot of grateful people around the country and the world, really, thank you very much for that and the investment you made in that cause. Thank you. A question is a follow-up to you, Governor, on this very issue with immigration. We have heard a lot over the years, lock her up, drain the swamp, going to build a beautiful wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. And crowds cheered and everybody loved it. And brands got built and nothing got done. What is the bottom line assurance that you can make to the people that are listening right now, all over the world and all over the country, that you can actually do the agenda that you just articulated when others tweeted about it and talked about it, but then couldn't actually follow through?
It's a great question because I share that frustration. I think even my worst critics in Florida will acknowledge when I tell people I'm going to do something, I don't make promises or say I'm going to do something lightly. I've thought it through, and I know that I am going to follow through on what I tell people I'm going to do. So this is one. There will be follow through. Number two, I understand the different leverage points that you would have under Article 2 of the Constitution. I studied that a lot at becoming governor about Florida's Constitution, doing the same thing for the federal Constitution. And you've got to know how to use your leverage to advance what you're trying to accomplish. So, for example, there's leverage that we can use vis-a-vis Mexico that I think presidents have not been willing to do. I think sometimes for political purposes, but I'll look at, okay, what are all the variety of options we can do? Which buttons can I push? And I will do that to be able to bring this issue to a conclusion once and for all. We had Hurricane Ian come through Southwest Florida, Category 4+ storm, September of 2022. And it did a lot of damage. But one of the things it did, it knocked out a bridge going from the mainland to Pine Island, and it severed the Sanibel Causeway in 3 different locations. and the locals were being told it's going to take 6 months to get that stuff repaired. And so they came to me, even though these were not state-owned bridges, and they said, "Can you help us?" And I said, "Okay, I'll do it." So I got my guys together. I said, "Listen, no bureaucracy, no red tape, and no excuses. Get it done. We need to open these bridges back." Pine Island Bridge reopened 3 days later. Sanibel Causeway opened 2 weeks after that, way, way ahead of schedule, because we wouldn't take no for an answer, and we wanted to make sure we got it done. So for me, it is not a campaign slogan that you get in and then forget about it. I'm, as an American citizen, if I wasn't running, this would be an issue that bothers me. I've put a lot of my capital as Florida governor involved in combating illegal immigration. We banned sanctuary cities my first year. We just did a strong anti-illegal immigration bill in Florida that's working. I've put marine assets in the Florida Keys to help the Coast Guard repel boats from places like Haiti. I have people at the southern border right now helping Texas, and we've even been able to relocate illegal aliens to places like Martha's Vineyard. So I don't think any governor has probably gone out of his way to do more to try to make an impact on this issue. And I'm not going to take no for an answer. And I think our voters are sick of the empty promises. They want to see action.
Thank you, Governor.
Well, Governor, I saw the cover of Time Magazine this week, and I think they were trying to do a negative story because they had you were sort of scowling in this portrait they made of you. And in the article, they call you, they compared you to the Terminator. And I think they meant insult, but I thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was a good thing because I think we need a cool-headed, ruthless assassin to go in and basically take on the woke mob, take on our out-of-control government, and take on problems like the ones at the border. So, again, I thought it made you sound great, even though that may not have been their intention.
Well, look, at the end of the day, this whole business that we're in is about producing results. I don't care about fanfare. You know, I'm the governor, like that is, I'm known, right? And I go around the state and everything, and people are very nice. And so, I mean, I appreciate the well wishes, but I don't need any of the fanfare. I don't need any adulation. I just know I'm in a position where I have a chance to make a difference, and I'm either doing it or I'm not. And I remember sitting at the desk in the state capitol my first day as governor 4.5 years ago. I looked around the room and I thought to myself, I don't know what SOB is going to succeed me in this chair, but they are not going to have anything to do because I'm getting all the meat off the bone. I am going to make sure that I'm leaning into issues and making an impact. And we have done that in the state of Florida. And I bring that exact attitude up to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Governor, I'd love to jump in and follow up on that. This is Chris Rufo, and I've had the honor of working with you in the past few years on critical race theory, gender ideology, and the DEI bureaucracy. And what I've seen up close and personal is that while many conservative politicians, going back decades, have made headlines and got on television playing culture war, they never actually get anything done. And what you've done over the last few years is really astonishing. You've eliminated CRT from all Florida's public institutions. You've stopped gender ideology dead in its tracks in K through 12. And just last week, you eliminated the DEI bureaucracy in all of Florida's public universities. They'll be shut down completely. And I think what you've done is established a blueprint for fighting back against the left's long march of the institutions and making sure that those institutions reflect the value of Florida voters, not left-wing activists and the partisan press. So my question for you is, DC is another animal. It's quite different, the scale of the federal government. And how are you going to deliver results? And what is your culture war strategy facing down the swamp in DC?
Well, some of it is similar in this respect. When we're taking on things like DEI, you get blowback from legacy media and the far left. But that's an example of an issue where they are out of step with the vast majority of Americans. It's not just Republicans. It's independents and a lot of Democrats. Because you think about if you're a parent and you've got kids, you want to know when they apply to college, they're going to be judged based on their merit. And they're not going to be roadkill in some type of woke Olympics where they didn't fit some category and so they're denied opportunity. They want to make sure that achievement matters. And so we get a lot of quiet support for a lot of those things. And so I think what I do, just because, look, I'm a blue collar kid. I grew up in the Tampa Bay area, working minimum wage to get through school. My grandfather worked in the steel mill in Western Pennsylvania. I just know instinctively kind of what like normal people think about all this stuff. And I have a good sense of when the legacy media and the left are outside of where the average American is, because people want you to be using common sense and things like DEI. I mean, when I was growing up, I think things were better because people were actually told you should try to get along. Now they're told you need to segregate, and it's just crazy that they're trying to do all this stuff. So by eliminating that, there's a lot of people that were really happy about that, including people that certainly are not traditional Republicans. And I think there's similar issues when you do in the federal level. It's also the case that there are some tools at the federal level that we don't necessarily have at the state level. For example, some of the problems with the university and the ideological capture, that didn't happen by accident, can trace back all the way to the accreditation cartels. Well, guess what? To become an accreditor, how do you do that? You've got to get approved by the US Department of Education. So we're going to be doing alternative accreditation regimes where instead of saying you will only get accredited if you do DEI, you'll have an accreditor that will say, we will not accredit you if you do DEI. We want a colorblind, merit-based accreditation scheme. And so as president, controlling that agency, you can then approve other types of accreditation. So I think part of it is just knowing where are all the pressure points? How does it get to the point that we then see and that somebody like you will run a report on? Like when you see some of the outrageous stuff that's generated in some sociology department at a university, that didn't just happen out of thin air. There's a reason why we got to that point. And I think that there are some tools with the federal government where you can push back and try to get these institutions moored in a more foundational direction about, hey, we're pursuing truth here, and we're not here to try to impose one niche ideology on the entire student body.
Great. Shifting gears, Dana Lash, you have a question or comment for the governor?
I do. And thank you both so much for your time, for joining us in a very new way. I really appreciate that. I think it's really cool. And for your support of free speech, too. And Elon, I have to say thank you for taking the arrows and for unthrottling the accounts of all of us who got in trouble for sharing a New York Post story about a laptop. And Governor, I wanted to thank you for your leadership and your unwavering support of Second Amendment rights. And you're on my program tomorrow, and I just got to say, you got my vote in the primary, so I appreciate it very much. You were talking about DEI just a minute ago, and I want to ask you both about this growing threat against natural rights and free enterprise. It's this threat of debanking. Now, I know that, Elon, I've read so much about you and what you've gone through. You've called ESG criteria evil incarnate. Governor DeSantis, Florida saw financially weaponized wokery earlier this year when Wells Fargo Bank dumped both the business and personal accounts of a very prominent and well-respected gun dealer in Florida. They'd been together for 25 years working with Wells Fargo, and they cited new ESG guidelines. Now, similar to the DOJ's previous Operation Choke Point, all these activists for various causes are using this regulatory guidance to debank what they consider to be politically incorrect businesses for the sake of risk management. Now, we say that our rights should not be infringed upon by the government, but what can and should be done about activist-guided financial institutions and these payment processors who are essentially cutting off law-abiding citizens and businesses?
Well, I think it's a fundamental issue that I think not enough conservatives have been wise to. I think more and more are, but at the end of the day, we have certain fundamental rights. And so maybe you're somebody that is, really excited about your Second Amendment rights. And obviously, if the government comes in and infringes that, we know you blow the whistle on that. That's a problem. But what if Wall Street banks are colluding so that somebody can't function in that space, whether it's running a store or anything involving that? Your rights are still being infringed upon in that situation. And so I think this whole ESG movement is really trying to do through the financial sector what they could never achieve through the ballot box. And so they're trying to do an end run around the constitutional system, and they're really trying to change policy. They're trying to change society. and they're trying to change the scope of people's rights. And so in Florida, I just signed anti-ESG legislation, which said things like no ESG criteria in our pension fund. We got a $180 billion state pension fund, no social credit scores for consumers when they're going to bank. In other words, if you apply for a loan, that loan should be judged based on your credit worthiness, not whether you're genuflecting to the appropriate left-wing causes. But one thing we did do is we did provide protection against this debanking with the woke banking. No discrimination based on your religion and other things, which we know is happening. So I think it's a fundamental question, but we will not be a free society if major financial institutions can do through the economy what people could not achieve through the ballot box. Our rights will be restricted, will be the end result, and that's not healthy for a free country.
You know, as a follow-up to that, Governor, Dana mentioned
Uh-oh.
Very sorry. I think you guys should be able to hear me now. I did mute
There
myself.
it is.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome.
Okay.
Sorry about that quick audio mix up. But everybody, if you want to go keep watching that or listening to it, I guess you can go onto Twitter Spaces, and check that out. But DPB, David Paul Blumenshine, does have to get out of here pretty soon. And so I want to, and so Deez and I are going to break it down more too, but I want to make sure David has a chance to give his thoughts on kind of what you were listening to there.
Well, I guess I'm going to take a page out of my favorite president, Donald J. Trump's book. He said about 11 minutes ago, Rob, I think he meant Ron, my red button is bigger, better, stronger, and is working. Truth. Yours does not. Per my conversation with Kim Jong-un of North Korea, soon become my friend. I think it's great. As I told you, you know, I wish that Ron would not have gotten in at this time. I think that the party sets up better with him running for president in 2028, but he's in it right now. So, unfortunately, I will tell you, Kat Peterson has said this often on the Morning Buzz. Ron is the establishment's candidate. And I have been a big fighter of the establishment. It's the reason I ran against Dan Brady twice. He's a representative who doubled our gas tax.
I need to cut you off, but so you think that Ron DeSantis is part of the establishment?
Well, Kevin, his money comes from the establishment. I'm not saying Ron's part of the establishment, but Trump did not take any money from the corporations, the billionaires. Ron's going to be
instead Trump pushes NFTs and digital trading cards.
But the thing is that's marketing. That's creative. That's thinking outside the box. Bottom line is that's the biggest hurdle that that DeSantis is going to have to overcome. First and foremost, besides the mega movement, is that he is bought in. I mean, look at who has flocked to him. I mean, it is the anti-Trumpers, right?
Not me. I'm not anti-Trump.
Well, I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying you are, Kevin. But I'm saying most of right now, his momentum is coming from the anti-Trump movement. And I think that's just not going to play well with the grassroots. And that's why I said that I believed his timing would have been better if he would have rode in on the white horse after 4 more years of Trump.
But the thing is Chris Christie was another person that was told to wait his turn. And look at Chris Christie's irrelevant now. No one cares about him. In 2016,
I think he was irrelevant back then, but that's fine.
But in 2012, people said no, it's Mitt Romney's turn. Wait your turn.
I thought he was irrelevant. So I mean, when at some point, you know, I've been a conservative for a long time, Kevin. And none of those people you're mentioning are conservatives. And I think that's what the grassroots is tired of, is people taking the stage, saying they're conservatives, running as conservatives, then going to Washington and acting like liberals. I mean, and you know what? He did hit upon that. DeSantis said that. And DeSantis has proven that that's not who he is.
But I don't think Trump is a conservative. I don't think.
Well,
Trump
no,
the
I
man
think
is
I said that earlier. I think DeSantis is a lot more conservative than Trump, and he's done a great job in the state of Florida. I just believe the only reason he got in this race is because of the momentum that he's getting from the establishment, the anti-Trump movement.
But it's not just the quote unquote anti-Trump movement.
Well,
There's plenty of people.
What is it? 10%?
There are plenty of people out there.
He's gonna need 50%, or at least
plenty
40.
of people out there like me who recognize the great things Trump did. Think Trump started an entire wave of populist conservatism that's unlike anything else. And I think that yes, and I'll agree with Trump that the DeSantis directly benefited off that movement that Trump started. But I think that DeSantis is the continuation of that movement, and there's plenty of other people out there, and I think it's significant. Actually, I think from almost everybody that I've talked to that supports DeSantis is similar to me. They credit Trump with starting something unlike any other in American history, but think that DeSantis is the continuation of that movement. And that
Do you think he gave enough gusto there to put him into the lead?
No. I mean, it was cookie cutter. He said all the right things, but again, I kind of agree with you. I don't think it's going to be enough to unseat the whole MAGA thing as much. And I agree with Kev. I would like Trump to go away because I think DeSantis is going to basically follow the same kind of game plan. The only thing I know that Trump would probably be better at would be the foreign stuff, whether it be with Russia, with China, whatever. I think he's going to take a much harder approach than what DeSantis would. But it's such a divide that Trump brings, but I also know that he brings a lot of great ideas and things that'll get done. I'm just concerned that if Trump does get the nomination, which I at this point think that he will, they're just going to fight him tooth and nail. The only way that I think he really, really gets things done is if we not only keep the House, but take back the Senate as well. I mean, and that goes with any administration for that matter. It always seems like the divide, everybody is pushing back against each other, and it just sits around and nothing gets done.
Well, but this whole assumption that Trump's going to take the nomination and everything, what happened to the 2016 Trump that said, who believes the polls? The polls don't exist.
No, you're right.
Every other thing that Trump posts on his Truth Social is a poll. But at one point, it was the polls don't matter. The polls don't exist. They're all funded by dumb people and by what happened? What happened? Why are the polls like the second to the Bible now to Trump? I don't understand it. I don't understand how you can have a one day the polls are nothing.
Kevin, we know that you're on we see the flag behind you, Kevin. We get it. But Charlie Kirk from TPUSA just announced that that Trump will be speaking July 15th through the 17th at the ACT, the big event that goes on down in Florida.
Oh, the Turning Point Conference?
Yes.
Oh, I'll be there. And like I said, I still think what I've been saying since 2020 is I think Trump should have stepped back and become a Republican kingmaker. And I think he should have done. I think he should have been.
And there's something to that, Kevin. But so here's my seriousness, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not taking, because you do wonderful things at your age beyond most people your age. But as a 60-year-old man and watching what the spiral of humanity and culture in America, we don't have time to wait for the Twitter function to load. We're in desperate straits, man. We don't win this election. The country as we know it might be over. That's the seriousness of it. Our border
agree with that.
is out of control. Kim Jong-un, he's out of control. He's out of control. Putin's out of control. Zelensky's out of control. The Ayatollahs are out of control. What we have now, 2 years after we had total control of all of these things, we were America first, now have suddenly everything's imploded. And I don't know. I believe that DeSantis has the ability to do that. But in Dees, you bring up a good point. It doesn't matter. If, say, DeSantis were to pull out one, and I'll support him if he does. But he's going to get attacked by the left just as bad as Trump did. It was Bush before him. You brought up Romney. They attacked Romney. Golly, that guy was as milquetoast as it gets. But they attacked him. They attacked McCain. They attacked Palin. The left doesn't stop, and they're not going to stop. That's why they're called progressives. And we need somebody that takes progressives and gives them a mean tweet. That's what we need. That's
just a few less mean tweets is all I'm asking.
Yeah. Well,
just
he's not tweeting. He's not tweeting any longer.
Well, yeah.
There's a lot of few less because he's the only place that he will post, which is kind of cool. He said that he was committed to Truth Social. I think he saw what happened when he competed in the worlds of Twitter and Google with Zuckerberg. He couldn't find any footing. They were doing everything that they did to him. So he said, okay, fine, parallel economy. And he started that. And I still think there's going to have to be a lot of parallel economy going forward. Joe Biden has done such mass destruction through mass formation in such a short period of time. It's going to take years for us to recover as a country. Even with Trump or DeSantis in office.
Even if we can recover. I mean, this
Even
new generation of liberals are so far to the left now that you can't even compare what we had in, like, I mean, even the Bill Clinton days. Like the left then, nowhere near what they are now, and what's coming up, and what's being pounded into these kids' head. Like, Kev is the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
And this younger generation, that's what scares me more than anything.
Yep.
And what should scare Trump or DeSantis is that 2 years from now, come election time, year and a half, whatever it is, there's a whole nother slew of 18-year-olds that have been sitting there and listening to all these old men talk. And it's just, I don't have a whole lot of hope. I hope that I'm wrong with everything in my being, but we're in dark days, man.
We are. Come, Lord Jesus, come. That's what I say.
Absolutely. I know, DPB, did you have I knew you had to get out of here relatively soon.
I got to get out here. It's 6:30. I enjoyed hanging with you guys. I know you're going to continue to
for a little bit longer, I think.
Chew on the cut.
You already missed the early bird special.
Well, I did, and then I'm just trying to keep it all moving, but it was a good show. I mean, I appreciate you guys will continue to hold it. You've got some people commenting. Hey, even Ezekiel's in the thing.
We have some.
He's a DeSantis.
I'm not even gonna. For anybody watching on YouTube, we do have a Facebook commenter. He's not really worth even showing. He uses a lot of profanity in his comments. So.
Well, because once again, you got to go with what's in your mind, and if it's limited vocabulary, that's what you got.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not to mention hiding behind a completely fake account.
Well, I love that. That's what we get. I mean, that's what you do when you're a progressive liberal and you can't come out and be a man.
Progressives don't even want
or a woman. I don't care. Be a man or a woman because I know the difference between a man and a woman. Which one are you?
They don't even want to put their face next to their opinions. That's like the biggest thing. They put, some of them put a tie-dye rainbow. Some of them put, what is that, Samuel L. Jackson for Ezekiel? They don't want to actually stand behind any actual.
That's right. That's right. And do not read, whatever you do, do not read Mr. Andrew Swan's nickname that he calls Regina Bowe.
I'm sure
he's got a new name for Regina.
Yep. Absolutely.
And it's not the Catholic version of Regina.
Okay.
All right, I'm heading out of here.
You guys, thank you so much for joining us here.
All right.
Take care, David.
All right.
Okay, well, everybody, there's more that I do want to break down when it comes to this announcement and some things, and I want these to. And DPV says I got to play the Trump video. We will play some of the Trump videos that he's come out with on everything sometime soon. But I want to break down the main things I want to talk about. There's some pros and cons mainly of this. So, and Deez, I want your opinion on some of these, but I want to start off with some pros of this whole Twitter Spaces thing, because that's like the biggest thing. Is it's very unique. It's very unique that DeSantis decided to use this Twitter Spaces platform. Yeah. And there's obviously pros and cons to it, and I want to know if you come up with any pros. We're going to do both, obviously the pros and the cons. Start off with the pros. I see
hard
one
to find a pro with the way that it went down, but
yes,
I get the whole idea. In theory, we talked about why it wasn't on TV or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was supposed to have come on at 5 o'clock Eastern.
6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central Standard.
Okay, 5 o'clock Central, but you still got a whole big part of the country that was still at work or in transit, things like that.
Mhm.
So the thought process, in my opinion, is, well, these people, they can just pull up their phone and listen to it wherever they're at. They don't have to
Exactly.
be sitting at home in front of a TV.
And that was my
Unfortunately,
first thing. I have it typed out here. Allows anyone, anywhere, doing anything to tune in and hear them talk.
yeah. So that
It's
part of it, the idea of it was very cool.
I agree. I think the problem that ends up happening with that is the fact that because all of it crashed, it makes people, while you're driving, like you're like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, and then like, I mean, I was sitting here at a computer having to search
Right.
around and figure it
Right.
out.
Yeah.
So there's that. I also thought another pro though with it was it does come off as slightly casual. I mean, it's like he's having a conversation. He's
Yeah.
not standing up in front of everybody with a speech. So it comes off as kind of casual. It's kind of like, and I'm not a fan of FDR, but it does go to the idea of like the FBI fireside chat kind of thing, like where
Right.
it's like, oh, I'm just sitting here smoking a cigar or whatever, having a chat with Elon Musk and anybody, whoever else wants to come. And that kind of leads into a big pro that I had as well is it's on what's being marketed. And they even said it during this whole thing. It's on Twitter, which is being marketed as the last bastion of free speech. I think it's interesting coming off of just like 1-2 weeks ago, Tucker Carlson announcing he's going to be moving his show exclusively to Twitter. You have Daily Wire, who yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, announced that all of their podcasts will now be streamed to Twitter. So I think that's kind of another big thing. And it's also a slight dig. Here's the thing. I don't know if you caught this, but having it on Twitter is a slight dig at Trump. Because as Twitter is becoming the quote unquote last bastion of free speech, while yes, there is Truth Social is so explicitly for conservatives and even now to an extent explicitly for Trump supporters that Twitter is kind of like for still kind of everybody. Yes, you have some lefties that are like, I'm not using Twitter anymore because it allows free speech. But it's a dig at Trump saying, hey, I'm going to go, if you're going to mouth off on truth, I'm going to go to the place that I know you won't come to.
Yeah, that's a huge mistake, in my opinion, by Trump, because there are still a lot of undecideds out there. There are still minds that need to be made up. And for him to exclusively take his act to Truth Social, which, like you said, is, I mean, I don't know if I can put a number on it, but I would say it's very, very high number of people that are MAGA all the way, no matter what. Whereas, DeSantis, he has, I don't know what the user count is between Twitter and Truth, but I'm sure it's astronomically different.
I know it's millions. I know it's millions for Twitter. I don't think I could say the same thing necessarily. If there is a million, maybe at max, I'd say 2 million for Truth. I could probably Google it real quick.
Yeah, I know what he said, and I'm sure the MAGA people would get mad if he did, but the first thing I'm doing tomorrow, if I'm Donald Trump, is I'm getting back on Twitter. If you really want to take this fight to him, you have to use all the bullets in the gun, and Twitter is a big one. And for him to just walk away from that, let DeSantis have it, I think could be a bad mistake.
So like here's the thing. According to Market Watch, Truth Social has about 513,000 active daily users. Twitter's reported active daily user base is 217 million.
Yeah, there's a slight difference there.
Yeah,
just a little.
Yeah. So I agree with the fact that I think that Trump needs to do something if he wants to appeal to that larger base. And so, yeah, DeSantis, they might, I mean, I don't really get this one, but DeSantis keeps getting attacked by Trump and by a lot of Trump supporters as a rhino. That's one I don't get. I don't think he's a Republican in name only. And I get the closest you could come to is maybe he has some financial supporters that also supported rhino candidates or something. Okay. But
it's no secret. I'm sorry. It's no secret that Trump was a liberal for most of his life and was even on record on the Howard Stern show years and years ago, long before it ever became a reality, talking about running for president. He said, if I ever decided to run, I would run as a Republican because that's where I could win.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that like in the 90s. And that's what, and it goes back to what we were talking about with Christy Mayer the other day about how, maybe it's one of those cases where in your youth, you're leaning, to the left a little bit. And as you get older, a little more mature, things start making a little more sense. And he went that way. Could have been that too. But, for him to just absolutely, it's like the difference I just talked about with old left and new left. It's anybody can say anything to appease to a certain side.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And so now, any more pros that you have for using Twitter Spaces and from things that you saw out of it?
It was, like I said, great an idea. I personally think they should have done like a standard type announcement and maybe had a few of those guys set up there for some questions, and then later start doing some spaces with some, like I said, fireside chat type things.
Yeah.
For him to do it in this fashion, with the result of it being a complete crap show in the first half hour or whatever, they're going to get roasted for probably the next week or so. But again, like everything else, people are going to forget and hopefully start to pay attention to what they're actually saying as opposed to how they tried to say it.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And so that makes me kind of want to lead into some of the cons. I do want to know, for anybody out there, if you have ideas and ideas of what was a pro of this or even cons, feel free to leave them in the comments. I see we have one beautiful commenter. Thank you so much for coming and watching us, Levi, calling me a clown. You just have such a way with words. You do, and it makes me so happy to have you watching and supporting our content. Thank you so much, Levi, and people like Levi. You are my biggest, to me, you're my biggest, you're my biggest motivation. I want to make sure that I can show you exactly how wrong you are. But thank you so much, Levi. You're amazing. God bless you. God bless America. Okay, let's get into some of these cons. Anybody else, if, like I said, please leave comments, and also try to make them thought-provoking. Calling me a clown is kind of part of idiocy. I see, Levi, you're asking some question about Trump's sexual assault thing. I've talked about that in previous shows. Go watch other content and other stuff if you want to know those questions. So yes, now we're going to go on to cons of using Twitter Spaces and stuff. Starting off with no crowd. I think having, obviously there's a crowd on Twitter Spaces, upwards of 750,000 people watching, which is more than Truth Social's average daily user base, which is good. But there's no visual. Because there's no visual crowd. When I think about Trump's announcement, which was back in November of last year, he had a big crowd of people at Mar-a-Lago cheering him on, along with the thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of viewers at home, on YouTube, on TV, on Twitter, everywhere like that. And there's something that comes with that visual of having people, and DeSantis kind of talked about it tangentially in the spaces. He said something like he doesn't need all the pomp and circumstance. He doesn't need crowds. He appreciates when people come out to support him, but it's not about that for him. Okay, I get that, but for a lot of voters, there's kind of a bandwagon mentality for some people in the idea of, oh man, look at all those people that are out there clapping and cheering and supporting this guy. He must be somebody I should take note of,
I agree. And it turned into, like I put the comment on the YouTube thing, it turned into like one of those conference calls that just seems like it just kept dragging on and on. And if they should have just had him come out, make the announcement, almost like the video, obviously a little longer than that, maybe take a couple of questions, but for them to just keep fielding questions like that, turn it into a press conference with 4 or 5 guys that were asking him stuff. Kind of softballs, if you ask me, but I think that they should have just made it an official announcement, and then they could have released the video and been done with it. But it turned into what it turned into. And I like how as soon as they got it up and running, they ran with it before it got overloaded.
Yeah.
Because what we have 600 and some thousand when it was crashing left and right. And then as soon as they got it up and running, I was watching the numbers, and he was pretty much done with the big announcement part of it before they even hit 100K.
Yeah.
And then, I don't think it ever got up more than like 250 to 300 by the time it was over with.
Yeah.
So,
and it's still, I don't even know if it's over now. I just figured I wanted to make sure that we got David's thoughts on it, and it got a lot into policy. And that's one, again, I guess I kind of missed that a little bit with the pros. He got into policy a lot, which I think is good. in terms of it's something that, and having, again, it speaks to the casualness of it. I think the policy talks were decent. But I definitely think that the biggest con is the visual medium. And there's a lot of things that go with it too. Like I said, no crowds, not being able to evoke any of that bandwagon mentality, but also going with that too. It raises questions. And again, I say all this as a DeSantis supporter. But it raises questions of, could his answers have been totally scripted along with the questions? Without that visual medium, it makes it a lot harder to tell. I mean, it could have totally just been like, they had all these questions. They had all the people that were there to ask the questions. It could have been all totally scripted to make him just look that much better.
Yeah. But again, without the visual, it's really hard to pay attention to it. You know what I'm saying? I'm sitting here listening to it, but I find myself browsing other things because I'm not going to just sit there and stare at a bunch of little icons with a speaker icon. You know what I'm saying? Like if they would have done a live version of it on camera, at least it would have been visual and would have probably kept people's attention better.
Absolutely.
Honestly, if I'm Tucker Carlson, I'm a little worried right now, though.
Well, here's the thing.
The kind of audience that he brings.
Yeah. So here's the thing. And this is what really kind of confused me. So they use Twitter Spaces specifically, right? They used Twitter Spaces. Let me pull up. If I go to Twitter right now and I go to Cities 92.9's Twitter, Cities 92, and I'll show the screen. It was weird to me that they used Twitter Spaces when we can see right now. I'm going to show you on the screen. We are currently live streamed onto Twitter. And I know this is kind of probably trippy for some people. And apparently on City's Twitter, we have 0 viewers. Fine. Obviously we have some Twitters on other spaces, but we're on City's Twitter. And you can see now it's going in and in and in, and it's going to keep going in. But that's you can have a visual medium on Twitter, and that's probably what Tucker is going to do. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why couldn't they do something like that for this stream or for this thing? I think it kind of hits again. I think it's pushing the whole Twitter and we're getting a question here. So why couldn't they have live streamed it on YouTube? Again, why couldn't they have live streamed it like that on Twitter? And I think it's because it was trying to push this whole idea of he's digging at Trump a little bit while at the same time hey everybody, Twitter's the last bastion of free speech kind of thing. And so doing specifically Twitter and making it Twitter branded. I think that's really what it is.
And I'm sure Elon probably wrote a check.
Yeah. I don't know. Actually, I don't actually know. I don't know if it's Elon, but maybe it was that other entrepreneur that seemed very supportive. Maybe he.
Yeah.
I forgot that guy's name already. I should look more into him and see who he is. I really don't know who he is. But there was another thing I wanted to point out as in terms of a con. I think that this could, and this is a con as well as just ammunition, I think, for Trump, is this whole, I think it could give kind of a conspiracy to a Hayden Biden kind of esque idea. You know what I mean? Where it's he won't show his face. Where is he? What's going on? Kind of like with the scripted questions thing too. There's a lot of conspiracy and a lot of questions that it raises as to what was he actually doing? Where was he? What was going on? I feel like there's a lot of questions that could be raised. And I think that, the Trump camp will bring it up. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This next week, the stuff that's going to come out of there is probably going to be pretty entertaining. And as libertarian, I'm here for it. I'm going to be laughing all the way, and we don't have a legit shot. So whoever comes out of it, whether it's Trump or DeSantis, will get my vote because there's nothing that appeases to me on the left, with the exception of the whole abortion rights thing. But that's another discussion for another day.
No, absolutely. We could definitely have that debate or something at some point. What's going on with your flag back there? We might as well just address that real quick.
My cat is going
of course your
ape shit back here, trying to rip it down because it's something new. So
of course
that's what's happening with that.
But overall, and I want to talk a little bit about the content within it. Obviously, we talked a lot about the medium, and I think the medium is the biggest thing. I think what Twitter Spaces kind of did was a little bit what the CNN town hall did for Trump. Is it exposed DeSantis and his messaging to a base that might have otherwise not been able to hear it or not heard it. I think, like I said, the lack of a visual medium is a big black eye to the DeSantis camp, but it's not unrecoverable. But I do think that it does allow more different people to hear some of what DeSantis's ideas are. Overall, in terms of content, I think great answers.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of it run of the mill conservative stuff, but also ran a lot on DeSantis's record. And I think that's the biggest thing that'll be a battle between Trump and DeSantis is the record to run on, because they both have pretty darn good records to run on.
Oh, definitely. I mean, obviously a much smaller scale for Ron, but you know, the fact is he's gotten things done. He's got results. So he's going to push that as hard as he possibly can. How do you think CNN is going to have Ron on?
I think they might. I don't really know though. I think when it comes to CNN, here's genuinely what I think. Is I think that the liberal media is going to push Trump so high into the polls for two reasons. One, Trump is the best thing for ratings. Like, they loved him in 2016. They loved him in 2020 because you put Trump on a screen anywhere and he does amazing ratings. Whether you're talking good about him, talking bad about him, he does great for ratings usually. And so that's one reason why I think they did the town hall. But I think the second thing is that I actually think the liberal establishment wants Trump to be the nominee.
I think they do too.
I think they want Trump to be the nominee. And this is the reason why I think that is, I mean, I have multiple reasons, but one, I think the biggest, he's the devil they know. You know, you'd rather fight the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And they know, and even with cheating and everything like that, they know how they can beat him. They've done it before.
Yep. And we still don't know what's going to happen with all these cases. I mean,
exactly. I mean, he has this one criminal case the trial's going to start, like, I think just a few months before the election, maybe in a few weeks, something like that.
Yeah,
so,
I kind of speculated that Ron might wait until a little bit more of that was known, but it was getting to the point where he kind of
people were asking too many questions, and it was like it was heating up so much to the point of which, like, he kind of needed to say something, because there was all this. I mean, like, I've talked with people within DeSantis's campaign, and my conversations with them have been like, every time I would talk to them, it would be like nobody would say he was running for president, but it was just like a general understanding that he was, you know,
worst kept secret in America.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think Trump getting in so early as he did both great things and awful things for him. I think it makes it so. I think the great thing about it is, like, everybody knows where he stands. And so then he can kind of force everybody else, like, not just Republicans, but even Biden, like, he is kind of pushed everybody to say, well, Trump's running for president. Are you? Trump's running for president. Are you? I think that's great. Right. But at the same time, it's made it so he does, it's not as hard, but it takes some more work to stay relevant at that point, because you ride kind of a wave once you announce. And I think actually DeSantis's timing is kind of genius in a way of Tim Scott announced like yesterday, right? Maybe 2 days ago. Nobody's talking about Tim Scott anymore. Nobody's going to talk about Tim Scott.
No, it's has and always will be a 2-horse race. Mm-hmm. And I think that what we're going to watch here is kind of like a UFC fight. These two are going to go at each other tooth and nail and just throw them under the bus as much as humanly possible. And then when the dust settles and we have a clear-cut winner, they're going to be buddies again. And I don't think Trump would be a running mate of DeSantis, but I think if Trump does get the nomination, Trump would be very, very wise to ask DeSantis to be the VP.
Yeah, I don't think that'd be bad. I don't know. Personally, I think the ways that Trump has gone off after DeSantis make it so that I don't know how much I'd love DeSantis being his running mate. Also, I think that there's a chance Trump would choose Carrie Lake. I think that's who he's kind of been prepping.
Probably not a bad decision either, just, with the whole woman vote thing. So I could definitely see that.
Well, and she appeals to a different demographic. I mean, she's an Arizonian. Like Trump chose Pence because he thought it would really help out with the Midwest. Arizona is kind of a swing state now, as we can see. And choosing Carrie Lake could maybe really help with that. It could help with just the whole idea of the Southwest in general. because obviously Nevada's been kind of up in the air as well. You have Arizona, New Mexico, and those are all states that get pretty close between Republican and Democrat. And so he could
Right.
choose. So I think Carrie Lake could really help out with some of that political stuff. I think DeSantis obviously brings in definitely a crowd, but essentially you're getting two Florida people. A lot of times you
Yeah.
want your Veep to bring up a different demographic in a different area of the
Agreed.
country.
Yeah.
Um, and,
Agreed.
and so that's why I don't think, and not to mention the fact that I think a lot of DeSantis supporters, I mean, there are DeSantis supporters out there, like DPB said earlier, that are anti-Trump people. I'm not one of them, but there are people out there. And so you could end up actually losing some people, because of that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, as where I stand right now is I would be a DeSantis guy. You know,
Yeah.
I just don't think he's going to win.
Yeah, I do want to answer this question right now. Where do I know that name from? Carrie Lake. She ran as the Republican candidate for governor in Arizona for 2022. Just recently fully announced that she lost. There was multiple lawsuits that were pending about ballots and possible election fraud and everything like that. And most of them have been thrown out. I haven't looked enough into it to say whether or not it's political persecution, anything like that. But that's just the story as I know it. Another big thing I wanted to say, going back to the Twitter Spaces, as I was listening to some of the content, I think it was a good question. I forgot who asked it, but somebody asked a question is like, yeah, it's great. You've done all these great things in Florida, but how do you translate that to DC? And he gave a pretty good answer for that one. He said, he talked about how he's been able to deal with the blowback from legacy media. He's been able to appeal to moderates, in a way. And he kind of alluded to the fact that other candidates, Trump, would not be able to appeal to moderates in the same way. And he's even appealed to some fed up liberals, people that are done with the CRT, done with the gender ideology, but are generally more liberal. He's able to appeal to some people on social issues that he wants to try to translate, that he thinks he could translate to DC because of the support he's been able to get from people that are fed up.
Yeah.
He said he gets quiet support. He does get quiet support from people across the spectrum, and that's the way that he'd be able to get it to DC. I think his biggest sell against Trump, though, that I think would really actually help him is that he said this. He said he was a blue collar kid. He had a grandfather that worked in a steel mill, and it makes it so that he's more in touch with the average American. And I think that's the biggest dig that he had towards Trump. It's no denying. And it's honestly kind of baffled me significantly that Trump has been able to really, really connect with the average person, with your average Joe, with your blue collar labor worker, despite the fact that he came from an incredibly privileged lifestyle. I mean, he even says in his book, the way that he was able to get his fortune was with a small loan of $1 million from his father.
Which is not a small loan when he got that.
No, exactly. He says that sarcastic, like it was just a small loan of $1 million. Like he is a man that has lived with a silver spoon in his mouth for his entire life. And yet he's still
filed bankruptcy multiple times.
Yes, this is true. And yet he's still able to connect with like your blue collar worker. And that's a way that I really do think that DeSantis could beat out Trump is maybe if he really does go in on that. I'm a blue collar guy. I have people I have experience coming up from nothing or from little in life. And he's obviously military. Trump's not military. If anything, it was kind of proved that Trump had dodged the draft. There's a lot of things that go in DeSantis' favor.
He's going to have to play dirty. I mean, Trump obviously is. So if DeSantis wants to sway any of those people over, he's going to have to, for lack of better description, sink to that level and bring up those things and talk, to the common man, like the common man, the way Trump did, regardless of where he came from or whatever. DeSantis actually has the background to live up to it. So
Absolutely.
he's going to have to get down in the mud with him. That's the only way I see this happening. He's going to have to sway some of those MAGA people, I think, to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know we wanted to play some of those those Trump ads and stuff, but we are coming up past 2.5 hours now. I got to get home. I've been working a lot. I'm sure you're pretty tired too, D. So
I got El Donzo blowing me up, needing tech support. So yeah,
okay.
I was gonna cut
Okay.
you loose here in a minute anyway.
All
Thanks
good.
for
Well,
having me on. I appreciate it.
of course, everybody go subscribe to Eldonzo and Dee's show. I put the link in the comments earlier. I'll put it in the description later tonight. Thank you so much for joining me, Deez, and
You bet.
everybody. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll make sure that I do a reaction video to some more of those Trump ads. Thank you guys. And as always, like, subscribe, and share, and have a great rest of your night. God bless you and God bless America.